Look, I'm not doing Demonless on this game. I don't want to.
I don't want to.
Like, I understand your guys' desire. I get it. I'm the challenge run guy. I understand. No.
Even old school SMT runs are difficult.
I see you have arrived, Demi-Fiend, but you're too late. It is I who will be the best Megami Tensei challenge runner.
I can't believe it. We truly were the Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne all along.
So you're telling me all I need to do is summon demons to fight for me, and then I can reshape the entire world?
We both know this is not the first time you have stood here.
Futomimi, I will carry on your legacy.
You've come a long way.
Then do you know why you're fighting now?
Are you satisfied?
Nocturne died, and I was given life.
Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to the first run I ever did. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is a game where you negotiate with demons, make friends, kill your friends, and forsake your humanity in order to attack and dethrone God. But what if we were to cut all that friendship BS out and attack and dethrone God with nothing but our bare hands? Can you beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne without using any demons? Yes. In fact, multiple people have done so. It's not that special anymore. In fact, so many people have done so that there are guides written for it and multiple videos showing you how. Most use the extra press turn you can unlock on New Game Plus, but in 2020 I showed that it can be done with only one action, albeit on normal difficulty, which cut me some slack. I never played the game before, alright? But then in 2023, Deus showed that the same can be done on hard mode. And I think the title of his video says it all. Solo hard TDE 1 press is most likely the hardest challenge in Nocturne. So without any way to make the game harder, I realized there was only one way to prove I'm the biggest masochist in this community. Mod the game itself. Now, there are plenty of mods for the HD release of the game, but when it comes to the original PS2 version, there's really only one. Nocturne Hardtype, a ground-up retool of the game by modder Zombero that changes formulas, adds new moves, and, obviously, cranks up the difficulty of every fight by several notches. Zombero updated this hack multiple times until October of 2017 before bowing out of the SMT community, making only scant appearances ever since. This is the most popular mod of the game, bar none, to the point where SMT modder Zephhyr, 2 H's, not mine, is making an updated version for the HD release. But while Hardtype has been well talked about and documented, Bubble T has made an analysis of it, Jim Reaper and Buffmeister have made low-level runs, I found myself in a similar situation to where I was in 4 years ago. While people like Ash Coop and Huaman have done solo runs of Hardtype, they did it with 2 press turns, which gives the player a significant amount of extra breathing room. Thus, I knew what had to be done. Can you beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne Hardtype without using any demons? The rules of the run should be familiar to you by now, but for anyone who's new here, at no point is a demon allowed to have any quantifiable effect on anything, whether it's inside of battle or outside of battle. Additionally, I'm not leaving anything on the table this time. The entire challenge must be done on hard mode and must be done on hard type. Everything within those boundaries is fair game, and if you're wondering what I mean by that, I'll explain in a little bit. Without any other preamble to get through, let's get this pain train started. Last time I named everyone after my Discord mods, but for this one, I wanted to be a bit more meta. So I named my teacher after the YouTuber who inspired me to start challenge running in the first place, and I named my fellow classmates after other SMT challenge runners. Thus, Nyarly will be filling the role of Isamu, Deus will be filling the role of Chiaki, and GameChamp 3000 will be the only person who isn't going to try and kill me today, Yuko Takao. As for myself, my name is Dick, and fuck you for asking. After my dream visitor tells me to go to the hospital for the mental trauma I've endured, I make my way there only to meet up with 2 other trauma victims, when we notice something a little strange.
Doesn't it seem a bit strange that we're the only ones here? I mean, the only people who came here are all mainly SMT channels that focus on challenge runs.
Maybe we are here to finally catch a break. Get an easy run for once.
Hardly. Even old school SMT runs are difficult.
Have you considered Yu-Gi-Oh? That's been fun to dip my toes into.
Persona is always popular too.
True. Still, we should figure out what's going on here. Robin, check the basement. I'll check the upstairs. Deuce, you check the ground floor.
Looking around to find out what's going on, we discover everyone's favorite Widow's Peak brooding in front of a prayer wheel.
Whee!
Hikawa decides to pull the "I'm going to kill everyone in this room" card, but Miss GamerChamp is polite enough to come in and ask him not to do that and get us out of there.
Okay, so I'm the only one here who hasn't played this game. Can you explain what's going on?
Oh, so, short version, that Vegeta-looking guy is going to use you as a battery to take over the world.
He's going to what?
Listen, and listen well. Go forth and find your reason. Create the new world in your image. In the ashes of the old world there will be demons. Use them as your sword and shield, and fell the challenges before you.
But we both know you're not gonna do that. You will take the world for yourself, by your hands alone, as you've done before. But know that the road is paved with suffering, for the domination you seek within your heart. You must experience true hell.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
With the challenge now firmly underway, we get to see one of Hardtype's quality of life changes. Magatama now display the skills they will provide, and from that, we see that Maragaria has been given a huge upgrade, now providing Death Touch, Stun Gaze, Berserk, Dark Might, and everyone's favorite passive damage option, Counter. Our starting armor has been tuned up quite a bit, giving us a lot more of the game to experiment with early on. But don't be so hasty grabbing everything. See, SMT Nocturne's system for learning skills is a critical factor in the planning process of any challenge run. Once you level up, if you're a high enough level to learn a skill from the Magatama, it will try and teach it to you. If you have slots open, you'll learn the skill immediately. Otherwise, you'll have to choose between passing on the skill or deleting an existing one. However, once you pass on a skill or delete it, that skill is gone. Forever. Once we get rid of Lunge, we will never be able to learn it again. Furthermore, if we want a specific skill, we must go through all of the skills that come before it. And since some bosses require some skills, we'll have to keep this in mind for the entire run. But that's future Robin's problem. For now, we meet up with Orlando Bloom, then experience the Nocturne tradition of nearly dying to the tutorial. Oh, thank God. I don't think I would have lived if that hit. Okay. That's the typical script for that encounter, admittedly. Shikigami replaces the first Praetor, but we deal with that by slamming out 2 back-to-back lunge crits, enjoying the fact that Hardtype has increased the accuracy and critical rates of, like, most physical skills. This is enough for us to cheese our way through the tutorial, grab the Maragivak, and use it to blow away the final Kodama encounter. We meet up with Lucifer later, and we make our way into the hospital. We meet up with this patient who wants to leave against medical advice because she doesn't trust the doctor, but I'm sure he's fine. Alright, you know what, fair enough. So our first task is to get her out of Shinjuku Medical. She offers to join our party, so we turn her into our first bench warmer and make our way to the actual first encounter of the run, 3 Praetors. And already the problems start. See, this fight is meant to teach you how you can take advantage of enemies' weaknesses. The Praetors are weak to all magic, so Pixie Zio can make short work of them. In normal Demonless, while the Praetors can kill you here, the best chance they have is with Feral Claw, which has a 25% crit rate, but only 75% accuracy. In Hardtype, Feral Claw's accuracy has been boosted to 94%, making that 25% crit rate much scarier. And even if they don't crit, Feral Claw still deals around 9 to 10 damage, and they deal 8 with their basic attack. To put it simply, at 42 HP, if we take 5 hits, we die. Each Praetor takes 2 hits to kill, 1 if we crit with Lunge, but each Lunge costs half a hit's worth of HP. If we don't get that crit, we're in serious trouble. And while I probably could have saved Scum to win with lunge spam, I wanted something a bit more consistent for, you know, the first fight of the game. Thankfully, I knew just how to do that. Remember when I said the Praetus were weak to all magic? All we need is some form of magic damage, and I knew exactly where to get it. If we could save the Miragi Rock from the tutorial for this fight, we'd increase our odds of success dramatically. So I rebooted my entire save and took the game for another spin. Killed everything again, no problem, grabbed the Miragi Rock, then got back to the Praetus. We can still absolutely get hit 3 times turn 1, which will most likely mean we die turn 2, but RNGing out a miss is a lot easier when you have a giant AoE fire attack on your side. It takes a few attempts, but after around 6 tries, we dodge the first hit, use the Miragi Rock to bring every Praetor within 1 hit of death, and drop 1 with a basic attack. Next turn, we get hit twice, putting us 3 hits from death. We kill 1 next turn, take a 4th hit, and 1 more basic attack officially starts the run. Of course, don't think you're out of the woods yet. Random encounters are a nightmare on hard mode, and now they're even worse. Deus once called this little icon here the panic meter, because if it's red, you're about to get mugged. Well, I hope you're ready to micromanage that meter with the moon, because if this is red when this is full, you're about to experience one of Hardtype's new full moon encounters. During the full moon, if you get an encounter, it will always be one of these new full moon encounters. Special fight that was specifically crafted to be absolute hell. These fights will put the fear of God into you, and you will be constantly watching the moon to try and avoid them. And Shinjuku Medical's full moon makes one hell of a first impression. You might think a slime should be easy, but these things resist physical, have Sukunda, hit like a truck, and can panic you with Sonic Wave. And on top of that, they can also use Gathering to summon more slimes, who can also use Gathering to summon even more slimes. Do not even consider fighting the slimes until you are leaving Shinjuku Medical. It is simply not worth it. You will die. Take what encounters you can and slowly make your way through Shinjuku Medical. With the exception of slime time, you should always have something to grind on, and if you can't, you can talk your way out of it. However, while in Shinjuku Medical, you'll also unlock the one thing that makes this area, nay, the entire run, possible. Death Touch. Anyone who's ever played an SMT or Persona game before knows Death Touch, sometimes called Life Drain, is usually a garbage move, dealing pitiful damage and healing you for the same amount. In Hardtype, Death Touch is the savior of the run, no joke. It costs a meager 4 MP and hits for about the damage of a basic attack. However, one of the changes Hardtype made to the math of Nocturne is that magic now scales with level. I've gone into the particulars before, but short version, in the original game, almost every magic skill peaks in damage around level 30, then slowly gets worse over time until level 160, when it bottoms out. Hardtype changes that, allowing magic skills to scale forever, just like physical. So Death Touch starts out dealing damage on par with our basic, and will always do that much damage, while also being Almighty Element and healing us. All these things combined keep Death Touch relevant for literally the entire game. Don't think this means you can coast though. The final boss of the area, Hornius, is still capable of getting damage to stick even through Death Touch. However, Death Touch makes it so we have to use items to heal significantly less often. Queen Akaya in the stream chat said she thought I'd end up keeping Death Touch until the end game, and she was right. This run would not have been possible without, if I might steal a joke from Deus's videos, Death Touch Gaming. Speaking of Hornius, punching a fish isn't all that different from the last time we did it. He's still weak to electric, so if you picked up the Mazio Rock in the pavilion, you could potentially get a free lunge crit. But other than that, he just does slightly more damage and has slightly more HP. He does still have his unique attack, Icy Death, but he never went for it in any of my attempts, and after a few tries, he goes down. Got him! Hardtype allows all demons to gain 75% experience even in the stock, with Watchful now providing 100%. So Pixie, now evolved into High Pixie, makes it to Yoyogi Park. She could leave, but as it turns out, she quite likes bench warming, so we take her along for the ride. When you get to Shibuya, save immediately. The enemies here are quite a bit scarier than those in Shinjuku Medical, and if you roll something like 4 Mortyus and 2 Will-O-Wisps, you're probably dead. Our goal is to get to the club within Shibuya and speak to Deus, who's probably coping with the fact that the world just got a realm aboard. After that, we need to get back to the save point, or else we lose all the progress we made and have to start over. I recommend starting this journey when the moon is at 7/8 waning, to minimize the odds of getting into a full moon encounter. If you do need to grind, do so in Yoyogi Park. It's right next to a healing station, and the enemies here are closer in power level to Shinjuku Medical than Shibuya is, so lunge and death touch spam should still be enough. This should give you enough power to reach the club, and also give you the money to purchase the Shiranui and Iomate Magatamas from the Jack Frost shop, which I highly recommend doing before leaving Shibuya. Shiranui's fire immunity will prove invaluable, but Iomate is the big one here, as it provides Tarunda, Sukunda, and Rakunda. Be extremely careful when leveling with Iomate equipped. You don't want to level up and learn a skill too soon, and debuff skills are worth their weight in gold. But with enough effort, enough grinding, and enough money, we eventually make it to the club to see how Deus is taking the end of the world.
I can't believe it. We truly were the Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne all along.
Neither of us really know what we want to do yet, but it's still early into the game, so we got time to figure it out. For the time being, we only need to worry about getting back to the save point. Talking to Hijiri, he agrees to send us into VR chat as a shortcut to Ginza. I recommend making a backup save before going into the metaverse, since you can't leave once you enter, and the encounters here are a step up from Shibuya. The Airthers can cast Rakukaja to make themselves far tankier than they have any right to be. The Arrows have Dia to make killing anything take way too long, and we still have Moryu to deal with. The only solace is that the full moon encounter here is against 2 Shisa. While they do open on double Warcry, we have Fire Breath at this point, so there's still a good grind option if you can swing it. This visit to Amala is slow and confusing, but as long as you keep yourself a manageable distance away from the last healing station, you should be able to get to the end without too much trouble. Though I would be remiss if I didn't show the one big mistake I made here.
What level do we get this? Fuck. Okay, it's not Rakunda. It's not Rakunda. It's not Rakunda. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Not even one dungeon after I expressed how careful we had to be with Iomate, and I already went and blew a skill on it. Thankfully, Tarunda isn't the only attack debuff we can obtain, and it's still useful to us right now. But we just have to hope this doesn't come back to bite us later. Still, our new ability to debuff the offenses of our enemies does make the rest of the Amala network easier, bringing us to our latest roadblock, the Spectre. The Spectre will open by summoning 6 of himself, and after 3 turns, he'll fuse together. The strength of the fusion depends on how many of him are alive. Under no circumstances should you let him fuse with 6, but thankfully they only have around 180 HP, so 2 critical hits from lunge should drop 1. They only have physical and fire attacks, so come in with Shiranui to null fire, and you'll rob them of a good number of turns. If you picked up counter, it's possible to get them down to 3 Spectres, but 4 or 5 is fine. The Fused Spectre has 2 press turns, and 2 basic attacks will deal around 100 damage. Not technically lethal, but Death Touch Gaming won't heal enough to keep us alive if he does it again. Use beads if you have to, and if he opens on Agi, go for Tarunda to debuff him. Although, that does bring me to one of Hardtype's most oppressive changes. Player buffs only go to +2, and enemy debuffs only go to -2. The math behind them hasn't changed, but this means our buff-debuff scale is 150% to 50%, whereas the enemies is 200 to 75. This means we won't be able to rely on buffs and debuffs to completely outclass a fight, but for this one, reducing Spectre's offense by 2 stages is enough for Death Touch Gaming to keep us alive until we're able to counter him to death. Arriving in Ginza, we now have access to Rag's jewelry, which provides us some extremely useful options. Attack and magic mirrors to repel physical and magic attacks, Dekaja rocks to cleanse buffs on enemies, as well as 3 new options. The Medusa Eye, a death-type item which replicates the Stone Gaze skill, the Dakunda Rock, which replicates Dakunda to remove debuffs on ourselves, and the Luster Candy, a new consumable which gives us a +1 to all stats. While the Medusa Eye is certainly useful against enemies weak to death, we'll be able to buy them with normal money later. Meanwhile, Dakunda Rocks and Luster Candies are invaluable. In base Nocturne, the Demi-Fiend has no way to cast Dakunda. It is somehow a demon-exclusive skill. This is one of the most game-defining aspects of a typical demonless run, as the only way you can remove debuffs was to just buff yourself until they're gone. Dakunda Rocks give us a control over battles we simply did not have in the original game, and I cannot thank Zombero enough for that. But even more important is the Luster Candy. Yes, it's single use rather than a skill, but a +1 to all stats is huge. Sadly, we can't buy any yet as we lack the gems to do so, but if we can find an easy way to grind diamonds, emeralds, and pearls, we'll have a renewable source of Omni buffs. But for now, we're stuck in Ginza, and there's not really a lot to do here. Nyx's bar is pretty empty, and she won't serve us alcohol because we're too young. And Loki won't let us into his room either, so we blow this popsicle stand and find an abandoned warehouse, which leads us to the sewers where the mud people live. We learn that they're hiding from the mantra, and nearly 4 years later, continue to give no fucks about this situation. However, the makeshift Manikin town does provide us with the greatest grinding well at this point in the game. Everywhere in the Ginza underpass that's not in the water doesn't trigger random encounters, which allows us to avoid full moon encounters, and the Asura here are extremely easy to grind and level off of. In addition, this is the first shop to sell chakra drops, which means we now have a reliable MP heal. On top of that, this shop also sells 3 Magatama. Ankh, the first healing Magatama, so we can grab Dia off of that. Hifumi, our first Force Null Magatama with some fantastic skills. And Komudo, our first physical resisting Magatama, which packs both focus as well as our new random encounter killer, Bite and Blast. Ki Blast has a bit less power than our basic attack and has only an 88% hit rate, but makes up for it by being all targets and having an insane 50% crit rate. This singular move allows us to hold our ground in random encounters and group fights, and combos extremely well with Death Touch Gaming due to its higher crit rates. What HP we spend for Ki Blast, we can heal if we get a crit, which the more targets we have, the better those odds are. We will have plenty to purchase from this shop in due time, but for now, the guard won't let us through. But this guy tells us he can get us past if we do him a favor.
Alright, so you need to sneak into Loki's room, go into his computer, and steal his porn.
Why?
Well, the world blew up, dude. You know how hard it is to find anything good without internet? I mean, come on!
So we sneak into Loki's room and steal his hard drive. Sadly, on the way out, we have to contend with a literal internet troll, who is thankfully fairly easy to kill by tossing on Wadatsumi and hoping for the best. He is weak to charm, so if you have any wagtail plumes, this fight is even easier, but you shouldn't need them. With that done, we head back to the underpass and hand Loki's flash to the collector, who provides us a slip that lets us through. But of course, you all know what time it is. A younger man once said, "This boss, who is known for being extremely hard, is extremely hard." And I couldn't agree more. Matador hasn't seen too many changes, aside from his HP going from 1000 to 2500. The only major change is that he swapped Mazan for a new Hardtype exclusive move, Dervish. Dervish is only slightly stronger than Mazan and lowers the target's evasion by 1 stage on hit. Important note, it only lowers evasion. Unlike Secunda, it does not affect accuracy. That said, if he hits you with this, you can kiss your odds of dodging goodbye. And Matador is the first boss that really benefits from the change in the magic formula. Since Matador is level 30, his Mazan would already be getting worse in the base game. Hardtype keeps his damage strong, so Dervish is gonna hit hard. And the rest of his kit is still solid. Focus and Andalusia still hit like a truck, and he now benefits more from taunt due to the changes in buffs and debuffs. The combination of these factors made defeating Matador at my meager level of 18 seem downright impossible. Thankfully, there's one thing we can do to give ourselves an edge. See, the Ginza Underpass shop is the first to provide lucky tickets. If you spend 1000 Maka or more at the shop, you'll be given 1 ticket, and once you hit 10, he'll offer you a pull from one of 3 boxes. And while we're going to be spending a lot of time with the white box, believe me, right now we are interested in the black box, since 3 of the 4 gems it can provide are diamonds, pearls, and emeralds. The 3 gems required to purchase a luster candy. Since the Ginza Underpass is mostly a safe zone, and what enemies we can find are easy to kill, this allows us to reload until we get the items we want, effectively giving us luster candies for a price tag of 30,000 Maka and about a half hour of our time. Why do I tell you this? Well, that's because Matador does not have Dekaja. Unfortunately, we don't have a method to farm money without also farming levels yet. So while I farmed the 60,000 Maka to buy 2 luster candies, I also grinded up a few more skills. Specifically, I tagged out Berserk and Dia for Fog Breath and Chill, a new light single target ice move that applies Secunda on hit. I took these 2 as a combo. Matador only reapplies Red Capote if his evasion or accuracy are at 0 or worse. If we reduce him to +1, Matador will not reapply Red Capote. Combine this with the candies I bought, and we can luster up to +2 evasion while he sits at +1 accuracy, which actually gives us a non-zero dodge chance. Of course, this requires us to stay at +2 evasion, and to that end, I elected to equip Hifumi. Dervish deals around 90 damage unresisted, and while the physical resistance of Kamuda would have been nice, force immunity was simply more valuable. This did mean we were susceptible to physical damage, and since we were already at +2 offense, once he started using taunt, it was effectively just a -2 to our defenses. But the +2 to our magic attack made Death Touch Gaming heal us for 125, increasing our ability to tank him considerably. With that, a couple choice attack mirrors to reflect focus boosted onto Lucia's, plenty of Death Touches to heal stall, and a couple lucky lunges, we took down Matador in a respectable 17 attempts. Believe! Yeah! We did it! Yeah, we did it! With that, we unlock access to the Labyrinth of Amala, and more specifically, the Amala Tunnels. To traverse into any of the Kalpas of Amala, we must undergo a dumb, stupid minigame, in which you punch orbs in order to make money pop out. The more correct orbs you punch without taking damage, the more money you get. In this first tunnel, you can get 855 Maka, which means 12 perfect passes will give you the 10,000 Maka necessary to grab a gem for Luster Candy. This means we now have the ability to farm Luster Candies without increasing our level. Since I don't like to just outlevel everything, this is something I will gladly take. After a bit of dying to random encounters, and trust me, just because I haven't mentioned it does not mean we have not been getting our ass beat by random encounters, we finally managed to make our way to Ikebukero, and enter the Mantra base to find Nyarly attempting to negotiate Thor into his party.
Let me take a huge chunk out of your HP.
Alright, sure.
Unfortunately, we get arrested for breaking into Loki's room earlier, and we have to endure 3-stage trial by combat. These fights are only slight tune-ups from the original game. Orthus uses his physical attacks a bit more, but can ultimately be cheesed by equipping Shiranui to Null Fire. Yaxini has even less to do, as she still only has her basic attack and force moves, so she can be cheesed by equipping Hifumi to Null Force. And Thor is the same as ever, preferring Electric, so he can be cheesed with... oh, right. Yep, just as always, you get the Magatama that nulls Electric from the first boss that specializes in Electric. Thor's damage is absurd. Even resisted, his basic attack does damage in the 60s, and it feels like he crits more often than normal enemies do. And his electric attacks, whoa Nelly! Thor's Mazio hits for around 75, his Zionga for around 150, and that's just his starting moves. He upgrades once you deal enough damage to him. You need to debuff Thor's accuracy, there is no way around this. I sacrificed my life to grind up more Luster Candies and came in with 2. Lustering up serves a dual purpose here. It not only increases our evasion, but also increases our defenses, meaning if he does hit us, he won't be doing as much. Open on Fog Breath to get him to -2 accuracy, then buff up with Luster Candy to get yourself the +2 evasion. This won't remove the chance for Thor to hit you, but it will make dodges possible. But that's not the threat of the fight. Personally, after you deal enough damage to enter his second phase, he gains Dekunda and Dekaja. And while his AI doesn't spam them, he does have them available, so he can put you in a very bad situation if he decides to use them. Second is Diorama. He's always had this, but it now heals for considerably more, even if we debuff his offense. And lastly is a new move exclusive to Hardtype, and Thor's signature move. It's so over, it's so over.
I have the power of God!
In Hardtype, Zeodyne is power 56 and has a 34% chance to shock the target. Mjolnir is power 66 and has a 40% chance to shock. Mjolnir does around 230 damage to us raw, and 130 if we have +2 defense and Thor has -2 attack. At 270 HP, 2 Mjolnirs will always kill us unless we are at +2 -2. As such, I had to change my strategy a bit. I decided to drop Lunge for Health Thrust, which can crit for over 800 damage if we're focused. Now winning the damage race, we were able to slowly but surely whittle Thor down. Proven innocent, Thor gives us the Narukami Magatama, which will definitely come in handy later, before telling us to go see Gozu Tenno, his leader. After we heal up, we head back to the Mantra HQ to go meet with the leader and save Nyarly. But before we do that, we have to contend with one of the most difficult fights in any challenge run of Nocturne.
Nice meeting you, kid. Don't take this too personal.
The first fight against Dante is probably one of the roughest fights of the run, and he was already one of the hardest fights in normal Demonless. He refuses to be debuffed, consistently pulling out Holy Star if you try. Hits extremely hard, and has an astronomical crit rate, mostly due to his unique special move, Rebellion. It doesn't hit that much harder than his basic attack, but it has a 200% chance to hit and a 50% chance to crit. Dante can use this to chain turns together and drain you of your HP even if you resist his attacks. Furthermore, he also comes equipped with Provoke, a special variant of Taunt which not only gives you a +2 to physical attack and a -2 to defense, but also restores most of Dante's HP while he's at it. Now, all of this is stuff Dante had in the original game. So you might be wondering, what makes him so much harder now?
But it's a lucky thing I had my pieces.
Your pieces?
My gun.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting.
Dante has an additional unique attack called Ebony and Ivory, or just E&I. This was relatively unimpressive in the original game. It hit 4 times at 8 power each, so it had a total power of 32, the same as the basic attack. It also had the same accuracy as a basic attack and only a slightly increased critical rate of 13%. This made it essentially spending 3 MP for a slightly fancier basic attack. In Hardtype, every aspect of E&I has been upgraded. Its damage has been increased to 9 power each for a total of 36. Its accuracy has been bumped up to 150%, essentially making it impossible to miss. Its crit rate has been increased from 13 to 30, but more than any of that, it now debuffs evasion and defense by 1 stage on hit. I shit you not, Dante is capable of killing you by spamming this move and doing nothing else. That's real, it can happen, it did happen, multiple times. More than half of Dante's available options are literally incapable of missing, including but not limited to Bullet Time, which is literally incapable of missing. The tooltip says so, it's Swift from Pokemon. I needed more of an edge than I had, and I was getting close, but just barely not managing to win off of counters alone. I had the skills I needed, and I was getting lucky, but it wasn't getting me results. But when skill and luck failed me, I remembered the wise words of my elders.
That's right, we're gonna cheat.
While doing some testing on my own to strategize the fight, I accidentally began using a Luster Candy, stopped, and then used a Miragi Rock, only to find that I had somehow accidentally buffed the enemies instead. Upon further testing, this could apply to every item. I had discovered a Hardtype exclusive glitch that I dubbed the Luster Glitch. The method is simple. Begin using a Luster Candy, stop, and then either use any other item or Demi-Fiend's basic attack for some reason. The item will be consumed and the target of the effect will receive the effects of the Luster Candy. So a medicine will luster the target it's used on, the Satraja Rock will luster your entire party, and a Miragi Rock will buff the entire enemy party. Also, I have no idea why Demi-Fiend's basic attack works, but it buffs the enemy you swing at, which is somehow even stranger than everything else I said. I'm not sure if this is an issue with storing data in the game's memory, or caused by the fact that the Luster Candy occupies one of Nocturne's typically unused item slots, but the effects cannot be understated. Using this glitch, the price of a Luster Candy goes from 30,000 Maka to around 500 or 1200, depending on the item we use. Speaking of, the one hang-up is that the item you use must be one that can be used on the target. So you can only use a medicine if you want at full HP, a chakra drop if you want at full MP, etc. This lack of needing to spend hours grinding up a single Luster Candy gave me the edge on Dante that I needed, as I was now able to luster up to +2 offense much more easily. Combine this with a couple of attack mirrors I found to potentially get him to E&I himself, made for a much more powerful combination, as I could potentially find myself at +2 evasion, which could cause his basic attack to miss. Nothing else though, E&I and Rebellion are still guaranteed even at max evasion. Eventually he gets low enough to break out Provoke and Bullet Time. In spite of his guaranteed hit chance and 30% chance to panic, Bullet Time actually isn't that bad, as it's his weakest attack by far and the only move he has outside of his basic attack that has a normal 4% crit rate. It took a lot of counters and a lot of luck, but after 2 straight streams of Dante attempts, we send him back to hell. He's at 476. He's at 476. Yes! One more counter. One more counter. One more counter. Give me your soul! Good fucking God! That took all day! Now able to finally get into Mantra HQ, we talk to their leader, Gozu Tenno, and he gives us the power to have 2 more demons in our stock. Cool. This is when Fiend number 2 becomes available, Daisoujou. Last time, I waited to tackle him until after I did some later content, but this time, we're doing it now. Daisoujou is one of the easiest fiends, but he's also one of the hardest. He is one of the most oppressive moves for this point in the game, Meditation. While it's not the hardest hitting attack in the world, it still drains a pretty significant amount of HP for this point in the game, while also draining your MP. This creates a twofold problem. We need to outdamage his healing, while also being able to do so without losing too much MP. This brings us to how Daisoujou is one of the easiest fiends. Most fiends can be put into one of 2 boxes. They either have Dekunda, or they have Dekaja. Daisoujou is one of the only fiends that has neither. In a normal run, this isn't all that useful, since we'd only have access to debuffs at this point in the game anyway. But this is far from a normal run. Fog Breath and Luster Candy get our evasion to an extremely respectable level, while also reducing the amount of HP and MP he steals on hit. Hindsight 2020, I could have kept Sarunda with a bit more strategizing, but this already made the fight much more manageable. Of course, dumbass that I am, I still decided to wear Kamudo to resist his physical attacks, instead of wearing Iomante to block the Mind Element Preach. Something Kamudo is notably... dodge! Oh no! Weak against. Not like that, not like that, not like that! Come on. We just have to clear. Meditation is a guarantee though right now. Wait. Oh my god. Come on. Oh my god. Oh my god. Dude. Fucking get your shit together. What is happening? Holy fuck. But with probably the biggest instance of luck I've ever seen, we managed to pull a run out of our ass and close the book on Daisoujou for good. Gotta go for that dark fight. Yeah! Never punished! Never punished! Absolutely never punished! Anyway, Gozu Tenno offered us to join the Mantra and help him raid the Assembly of Nyarly, which we sign on to wholeheartedly for reasons I'll get into later. In here, we have to fight Eligor, and Bareth, before we finally have to head back and fight Patrick Starr and his dumbass cousins. These guys are weak to Expel, so I decided to toss out a couple of the Mahama rocks I had on hand, which dropped 2 of them. From there was literally nothing else the last one could do to stop me from Death Touch gaming it to death. You'll have to excuse my speeding through this section, there's not really much to talk about. Our Ki Blast Fog Breath combo made sure that the encounters weren't too difficult, so most encounters could be bowled through until we make our way down to Hikawa.
I see you have arrived, Demi-Fiend, but you're too late. It is I who will be the best Megami Tensei challenge runner. Watch as I kill all my enemies in a single cutscene.
Dude, no.
What?
You're supposed to kill your friends.
Oh, Shit.
It's alright, keep trying.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Oh, I forgot to mention, GameChamp plays a key part in this system.
I have no idea what that even means, but I'm happy to play a key part in this system.
And now, the Cheetah Men.
Ose has not changed at all in Hardtype, only gaining a bit of an HP bump. Well, that was until I buffed the boss by accident. Yeah, remember when I said the Luster glitch applies the +1 to the targets of the item? It does not discriminate. So when I accidentally used the Dekaja Rock instead of a Tetraja Rock, I buffed all of Ose's stats by +1 instead. And to add insult to injury, that was my last Akaja rock, so I couldn't even get rid of the buffs. But ever the masochist and really not feeling like reloading, I decided to play the fight out. Thankfully a +1 didn't make the fight much different from normal. He mostly focuses on hitting you with powerful physical attacks made much more accurate via Tsukukaja, usually opting for focus into Heat Wave. Thankfully, Kamuto's physical resistance halves that damage, and Fog Breath and Luster Candy give us a fairly high miss chance, to the point where we don't need to worry about it hitting all that much. While he does have Dakaja and Dekunda, meaning he could theoretically remove our buffs or his accuracy nerfs whenever he wanted, he literally never used them. He also has Tetracon and Makaracon, which allow him to repel physical or magical attacks for the turn. But Almighty ignores both, so Death Touch Gaming still applies. Death Touch is the name of the game here. It gets around his shields and keeps us alive even if he manages to land a high damage hit through our mitigations. This fight is far from free, but as long as you're careful, you can send this cheetah man back to the NES, unlocking the Anathema Magatama. Returning to Ikebukero, we see, hey, Deus!
Hey, Robin, what's up?
Yeah, just came back from tearing apart Nihilo. You?
I just got here through the Ginza Underpass. Did you meet the Manakins? I love the twitchy little guys. I wanna try to help them, don't you?
We learn that they're hiding from the mantra, and nearly 4 years later, continue to give no fucks about this situation. Absolutely.
Great. Well, I'm gonna go try and get some demons. I heard they might be gathering at Asakusa soon.
That was close. Anyway, hey, Nyarly, have you figured out your reason yet?
What the hell are we doing wandering around in this godforsaken world?
Okay, he's still going through it. We'll check on him in a few. So we make our way out of Ikebukero, only to get ambushed by a non-copyright infringing Ghost Rider on our way down the freeway. And I'm gonna be real, I gave this one my best shot, but it was not happening. Hellbiker is unique among the fiends in that he is the only one with both Dekunda and Dekaja. As one of his unique moves, Hell Exhaust also Dekajas your entire field. And frustratingly, the Dakaja still applies even if you're immune to Force, so that's fun. But the real issue with this fight comes down to our available options. Hellbiker has 2 elemental options, the aforementioned Force Element Hell Exhaust and Scald, which replaces Hellburner and now acts as a Maragi that debuffs physical attack by 1 stage on hit. If we wear Hifumi to Null Force, we'll be weak to fire, meaning Scald will now deal insane damage and kill us the second we reach his later phases. And if we wear Shiranui to Null Fire, we'll be weak to Force, which will kill us even sooner. And both of these skills mean that we won't be able to maintain buffs and debuffs, so we can't try to cover our weakness that way. And while Kamuto's physical resistance would help us with his basic attack, it would leave us neutral to his elementals, so he can rip a hole in us without any notable effort. It would be some time before we could even entertain the idea of doing this fight, but we will do it eventually. Arriving at the Kabukicho prison, we find the Manikins Deus was so eager to work with in prison, so we gotta help them if we want any hope of being able to continue onward. This dungeon is really more of a puzzle cube than anything else, and it is definitely pretty confusing, since you need to swap between the real world and the illusory upside down world in order to navigate the place effectively. But with enough effort, you'll make your way through the prison and reach the final boss, Mizuchi, who is most likely the least changed fight in the entire game. His HP has only been increased by 1800 for a total of 6600. That's literally it. That being said, the changes to the magic formulas do increase his damage by no small amount, as he starts with heavy damage ice attacks along with the mind element Mirage. But Luster Candies and Fog Breath give us the dodge chance to avoid damage, while Death Touch Gaming keeps us alive when we do take damage. I recommend using Iomante over Watatsumi, as dodging the panic chance on Mirage just felt better to me. Always start a turn with Miragi Rock for damage, but in terms of the order in which to set up, I recommend starting by lustering up for both damage mitigation as well as evasion. Once he misses, use Fog Breath, as him being at -2 with us at +1 gives us a higher dodge chance than us being at +2. After that, luster up at the next opportunity, and Mizuchi won't even be able to touch you.
My thanks to you for saving me. I am Futomimi. You may know it already, but I can see into the future. Allow me to prophesize your future as a token of my gratitude. I gotta get out of here.
Wonder what his deal was. Anyway, I think he said Nyarly is in here. Hey, Nyarly, have you figured out your reason yet?
I saw everything.
What?
This world, this challenge, it's all fake. We're just recorded lines, forced to say the same things over and over again.
What are you on about?
As long as this game exists, we won't ever die. Nocturne will just keep going forever. I'm sorry, Robin. I know what I have to do.
What is it about SMT that makes all of my friends so weird? Anyway, so with the mannequins freed, we make our way over to the Ikebukero tunnel. Thankfully, I've played this game so many times that I basically know the Ikebukero tunnel like the back of my hand. But that's not the main thing in this area. That would be the Onis. Suiki, who specializes in ice, Fubuki, who specializes in force, and Kinki, who specializes in physical. In the base game, Suiki and Fuki are pushovers, since their physical attacks are weak enough to face tank while you use a Magatama to null their magic attacks. However, Hardtype's higher damage numbers mean that even at +2, physical attack spam against neutral resistances can still be lethal if they get lucky. And since every Oni has had their HP at least doubled, the odds that they'll get lucky are higher than I can handle at my current level. And don't even get me started on Kinki. As such, we decide to table these for now, which makes our first visit to the dreaded Ikebukero tunnel fairly uneventful. And speaking of uneventful, arriving at Asakusa is fairly uneventful as well. For most people, Challenge Runner know, you'd have beaten Daisoujou and Hellbiker by now, as they really aren't that difficult if you know what you're doing. This allows you access to the second Kalpa of Amala, and beating that spawns the 4 Horsemen as bosses. Specifically, White Rider will now spawn in front of almost every terminal in the world. However, since Nicolas Cage still draws breath, we can't go in. Thus, Asakusa is peaceful for the time being, and we can save unabated. This also means we can start purchasing stuff from the Everything to Fuck White Rider shop before White Rider even arrives, which is extremely useful. Gehenna is as useful as ever, containing Void Fire, Fire Drain, and Magma Axis. And Nirvana is nothing to sneeze at either, giving us Divine Shot, the strongest physical skill we have access to until the mid to late game. But there's also now a third option, Gaze. For those unaware, Gaze is typically obtained by completing Puzzle Boy, a minigame that takes around 3 hours to complete without a guide, or an hour with one. There are no checkpoints either, so you have to do the entire thing in one shot or start over. Literally everyone hates Puzzle Boy. So, mercifully, Zombero allowed Gaze to be purchased in the Asakusa Junk Shop for 25,000 Maka on normal mode or 50,000 on hard, since hard mode only doubles shop prices now instead of tripling them. We beat Puzzle Boy anyway though, because Mama didn't raise no chickens. Anyway, so Futomimi won't talk to us anymore, but we hear through the grapevine that Hikawa is keeping GameChamp in the obelisk. But I wasn't about to move forward on the obelisk while Hellbiker still lived, much less Fuki and Suiki. Those are chump fights. How do I expect to take the Moire sisters if I can't even kill those losers? But I couldn't just start taking skills willy-nilly. Remember, any skill I pass on or throw away is gone forever. And I knew the Moire sisters were going to require a very specific set of skills. I needed a plan. I needed a route. So I slept on it and routed my path through the Onis and through to the Moire sisters. I decided to start with Suiki. I came in at level 47 with Death Touch, Counter, Fog Breath, Focus, Hell Thrust, Hellfire, Anti-Ice, and also Ki Blast for random encounters, because 50% crit rate is enough to cheese most fights. This, alongside Kamuto, allowed me to resist everything Suiki had. Combined with the +2 to defense from Luster Candies, and Fog Breath allowing us to go +2, -2 on evasion and accuracy, makes Suiki pretty consistent, and Hellfire and Death Touch Gaming make him completely controllable. Up next, I actually made use of a consistent grind well I found. See, the full moon encounter in the Ikebukero tunnels is a Sarasvati that likes to spam extremely hard-hitting force attacks. However, that is the only thing she does. So if we come in with Hifumi, we can completely shut her down. This obviously helps if you find yourself about to get into a full moon fight, since you can just toss on Hifumi for a second, but how do we farm this? Well, to understand that, we need to understand how the panic meter works. Every time you come out of a random encounter, the game rolls randomly to determine how long it'll be until the next encounter, ranging anywhere from around 60 seconds of uninterrupted walking to before the fight music can even fade out. This is indicated by the color of the gauge, as it goes from yellow to red. However, this can be manipulated in 2 ways. The first is via save rooms and load zones. If you leave the map or enter a save room, the game re-rolls the encounter timer. The second is by entering an area where random encounters do not trigger, indicated by the meter being blue. If you're in a blue zone, the timer does not reset, but is instead paused. If it was orange when you entered a blue zone, it'll be orange when you come back unless you do something to cause a reroll. This is what we want. After our encounter with Sarasvati, run around until the meter is nice and red just before a random encounter would actually trigger, at which point run upstairs into the subway. From here, run around until the moon is full, then head back downstairs. An encounter will trigger and the full moon guarantees it'll be Sarasvati, who will get stonewalled by Hifumi for free experience. Rinse and repeat until you're the level you want. Now with a perfect EXP farm, we drop Hellfire and Anti-Ice for Warcry and Void Force off of Hifumi. This, combined with Kamuto, allows us to all but stonewall Fuki, as any damage he does to us with physical attacks is healed off with Death Touch Gaming. Sadly, Kinki proved to be much too difficult, as his strategy is much more fine-tuned. He has 2 actions and always does the same thing every round with them. The first action is a buff or debuff. Tarukaja, Rakukaja, Tarunda, Rakunda, or Dekunda if you have him particularly debuffed. He follows us up with a physical attack, which means we have to micromanage healing ourselves along with keeping the buff state of the fight within reasonable bounds, or else the fight will spiral out of control. There is, however, a pretty easy solution to this fight, but I hadn't realized it yet, so we'll come back to this later. However, now significantly easier was Hellbiker. As we now had Void Force as a passive, we could now run whatever Magatama we wanted without worrying about Hell Exhaust kicking our ass. Given he still does no small amount of damage with physical attacks, so I ran Kamuto for physical resistance. This did mean we were still vulnerable to Skull debuffing our physical attack, but since Death Touch Gaming had all but replaced my basic attack at this point, I didn't really care, and we were able to finally take down the Ghost Rider. Before taking out the second Kalpa, I wanted to at least clear most of the obelisk, so I elected to start my trek up the tower. This dungeon isn't too hard, admittedly. Void Force gets a lot of mileage here, and Ki Blast will take down the rest. The main puzzles of this area involve manipulating the moon's phases to your whims in order to move blocks and open doors. Some of these puzzles end on a full moon, so keep that in mind so you don't walk yourself into a full moon encounter. Though with that being said, the full moon encounter of this dungeon is a Kurama Tengu, who summons Karasu Tengu as backup, both of which prefer spamming force attacks above anything else, so they shouldn't be too hard to take down or even run from, since Hardtype now allows you to run away on hard mode. Though the Kurama Tengu might insult you for doing so.
That would be funny. Dummy!
Rude. One floor from the final boss, we encounter one final puzzle, and one that I was honestly not expecting to be any kind of issue. In this encounter, we are given one final block puzzle, with 3 separate doors that open at different points of the moon cycle. Behind each lies one of the Moire sisters, all of whom must be beaten in one cycle in order to continue. Clotho and Atropos can be fought on a half moon, and Lachesis must be fought on a full moon. The solution isn't too complicated. Fight them in the order of Clotho, Lachesis, Atropos. But the problem is actually defeating them. Atropos is a bit difficult considering she has the most damaging options out of the 3, but Shiranui along with Void Force gives you 2 nulls and no weaknesses, which alongside Warcry, Fog Breath, and Luster Candies should allow you to take the fight. Lachesis gains Attack All, which changes nothing for us, but seeing as her only damaging attack is her basic, Kamuto should be your go-to here. She has Tarukaja, Rakukaja, and Rakunda, but no Sukunda or Sukukaja should allow you to make space with Luster Candies and Fog Breath. From there, keep yourself buffed up and keep her debuffed, and this should be manageable. The problem here, I shit you not, was Clotho. Though she does not have Dakunda or Dekaja, meaning Warcry, Fog Breath, and Luster Candy will be permanent, she has been given a much more consistent strategy. She drops Marin Karen and Dia for Stun Needle and Megiddo, and her stats have seen enough of an increase that she still does around 110 with Megiddo and 125 with her basic attack, even with our buffs and debuffs at maximum. Plus, she's still remarkably accurate, so we won't be able to dodge tank this as well as we did the others. But even then, all of that would still be manageable, if not for one thing. Her healing. Clotho retains Diorama, and it now heals for 1,111 HP. Mind you, this is with Warcry nerfing her magic by 25%, which does affect healing in Nocturne. So if we didn't have it, she'd be healing for around 1,481. She can do this on every turn whenever she wants. And on top of that, she now has Drain Attack, which means that if she lands her basic, she's healing for 120 HP on hit or 195 on crit, because Drain Attack no longer has a reduced critical rate. Lastly, she still has Mahama, which even though Demi-Fiend has a 50% resistance to Expel and Death, and supposedly Mahama only has a 20% proc chance, this killed me so many times, I legitimately didn't feel comfortable going without the Expel immunity from Nirvana. This fight completely stonewalled me. I simply could not get lucky enough to break through her healing. And while I could have theoretically stalled her out of MP, it would have taken an eternity. And I wanted to avoid MP stall strategies unless they were absolutely necessary. Defeated by what was meant to be a warm-up fight, I've retreated in shame, going to the second Kalpa. Amala 2 hasn't changed all that much, though the encounters are now a bit trickier. And if you're wondering what the full moon encounters for Amala are... No! What the fuck are you doing here? The first Kalpa features a refight with Matador, and the second has two different ones. Throughout the bulk of the second Kalpa, you'll fight Hellbiker, but in the Cursed Corridor, you'll fight Daisoujou. And would you believe me if I told you that they're usually more difficult than their actual fights? You'll want a healthy supply of smoke balls, because unless your kit still resembles what you used to fight the Fiend the first time, you most likely do not have the ability to handle this full moon encounter. Thankfully, we still had our Hellbiker kit, so when he showed up, the fight was essentially just a slower version of what we just did, but I still don't recommend it. Regardless, at the bottom of the Kalpa, we get some exposition and release the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. From this point on, White Rider will spawn in front of any terminal except Shinjuku Medical, the Ginza Underpass, Mifune Shiro, or the Labyrinth of Amala. Thankfully, we can prepare for White Rider at the same time as we prepare for the Moire sisters. I determined that the main thing keeping me from beating Clotho was a skill issue, which is to say that my stats were too low. So I began abusing the lucky ticket system for something else. The white box either contains a useless Balm of Rising, or one of the 5 stat boosting incenses, the likelihood of each result changing with the phase of the moon. This allowed me to grind out a significant boost to my stats, which I thought would help me in defeating Clotho. However, to obtain lucky tickets, you need to buy something, and Ikebukero's shop sells Medusa Eyes. This is why we don't need to buy them from Rag's Jewelry in Ginza. You can literally just buy them for fairly cheap in Ikebukero. And White Rider opens by summoning 2 virtues, which are weak to Death Element. Since Medusa Eyes just mimic the skill Stone Gaze, this weakness means the effect is guaranteed. This allows me to completely incapacitate the virtues before the fight even begins, before following it up with a Fog Breath and a War Cry. Since White Rider has Dekaja and not Takunda, these effects are permanent. He will never use God's Bow on Demi-Fiend, so Gehenna completely stonewalls him. He can barely outdamage Death Touch Gaming if he goes for 2 basic attacks, and he prefers to go for Prominence, the second strongest fire attack in the game, which Gehenna just shuts down. I expected Red Rider to be more difficult, but honestly, it was easier than I expected. Red Rider has Bolt Storm, Wind Cutter, and a unique skill called Terror Blade that hits 3 to 5 times on random targets with a 30% panic chance. He also summons 2 powers as backup to reinforce him with Tarukaja and Guillotine. However, the powers, just like the virtues before them, are also weak to death, so our Medusa Eye strategy still incapacitates them. And Terror Blade isn't as scary as you think. In the PS2 SMT games, random target skills only hit 1 to 2 times if there was only 1 target on the other team. This means Terror Blade is either slightly weaker than a basic attack if it hits once, or around twice as strong. This puts the average in our favor, since most enemies have much scarier options than this by now. And lastly, while Red Rider has Dakunda, he lacks Dekaja, allowing us to freely luster up to a big fat +2 to all stats. While Terror Blade can take half of our HP off of us if it double procs, our +2 to evasion means it's not guaranteed to hit. And our +2 to damage means Death Touch Gaming will heal off almost all of the damage before he can do anything about it. In addition, critical hits don't matter for him, since any flashing press turns would be used by the powers, who are a bit stoned out of their minds right now. We also still null force, so Wind Cutter effectively ends his turn instantly, and Bolt Storm doesn't do much more damage than Terror Blade. I do recommend using Iomante over a physical resisting Magatama for once, since if we ever get hit by Panic, we effectively lose immediately. but if Red Rider allows you to set up, this fight becomes trivial. I was fit to keep my feet killing streak going by killing Black Rider, but he only spawns after we take care of the Moire sisters in the obelisk, so we have to go back. At this point, we were more than prepared. Rigging the lucky ticket lottery gave us an insane stat line for only being level 55, so we are much stronger than we should be. This, alongside Divine Shot over Health Rust, allows us to just barely eke out a win on Clotho, which allows us to take Lachesis and Atropos to the cleaners. This brings us to what is typically one of the hardest fights in the run. Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos at the same time. Their roles are the same as their individual fights. Clotho heals, Lachesis buffs, and Atropos spams spells. While Atropos is the only one dealing actual damage, she's the least threatening. If you have 2 nulls and a Magatama to get a third, she'll only be able to do damage with 1 element, which is completely manageable. I've recommend learning Void Fire and Void Force, and using the Miasma Magatama for Void Ice, as I notice she tends to use Electric the least. No, your main concern here is getting damage to stick. Typically, you want to drop Clotho first, since her healing will remove your progress and Lachesis' magic buffs will increase her healing. However, once one of them gets low enough, Clotho will start healing with Media, and will even get up to Mediarama if they get particularly low. Plus, while Atropos is definitely the main damage dealer, Clotho is plenty capable of dealing damage using Megiddo. But after a while of watching them, I noticed something about their AI. See, Clotho is a bit selfish. If she's low on HP, she'll start spamming heals ASAP. But Lachesis? She can wait a little while. Now, she'll still start healing if they get in real danger, but I saw that small bit of extra time as an opening. Thus, I began firing off Divine Shots, really getting a feel for when Clotho decided her sisters needed healing, which I felt like was around 2,000 damage. So I waited until she was just below 2,000 damage taken, and I let loose a focus boosted Divine Shot for a 2,000 damage crit, followed by 500 more. Sadly, this just barely wasn't enough, but Clotho didn't have any magic buffs, so her Mediarama only healed for around 600. I knew I had a shot, so I took a risk and fired again. Alright, just swing again. Swing again. 769. Swing again. Oh, we got one! We got one! Okay, wait! With Lachesis down, the dynamic of the fight swings in your favor. Atropos and Clotho can't control your buffs, which means we can now set up freely with Luster Candies. And while Clotho does have Dakunda, she doesn't like to spam it, so we can even get away with debuffing them with Warcry and Fog Breath as well. Of course, Clotho's healing is still a problem, and she's not going to let it go down very easily. But once you luster up, even if she does heal it off with Mediarama, you'll be doing around 1400 damage per shot, which means enough focus boosted crits will put her down. And while this is definitely a luck check, at this point in the fight, we don't have to worry about dying. So we can keep rolling those dice, healing up with Death Touch if we don't roll any 7s. Eventually, the dice will roll in our favor, and we can tap the fight in without any effort, securing the Jed Magatama. One of the hardest fights in the run, and it didn't even take me an hour and a half. Red Rider, a fight I had to take late game last time, and it was a pushover. Is this how this is supposed to feel? The Demi-Fiend should feel powerful. I feel powerful. With this power, I can crush them all. I can tear this game asunder. I can... Okay, that's on me, sorry. Anyway, Will Turner wants us to go check up on Nyarly, so we shove off back into Amala to see if we can't find him. The encounters here aren't too scary at this point. What Death Touch Gaming can't get us through, Fog Breath and Ki Blast are more than capable of taking down. At the end of this area, we fight the Spectre once again, who has a new strategy. He opens with all 6 of himself and has the power to cast Megiddo for a lot of damage. However, he lacks the MP to use it, so he'll attempt to use Mana Drain to steal yours. Of course, this requires you to have MP. If you waste all of your MP beforehand, you can force Spectre to spam his basic attack, which does very little damage once you luster up the +2 defense. This also has the side effect of making Bite and Blast nearly 100% accurate. On the other side of this encounter, we find Nyarly who... Yo, you want to explain what you were saying back in Kabukicho?
The Amala Drum showed me everything. Every version of this game. No buffs, no demons, no demi-fiend, no Magatama. I've seen them all. Every run, it just keeps repeating with different people. I can see every challenge, every script.
So, what are you gonna do about it?
I'm going to remove Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne from existence. That way, we can all move on. We can all be free. Do you understand?
Okay, but can I beat it first?
That is the explicit thing I am trying to stop.
So anyway, coming back to Ginza.
Hey, don't cut away from me.
We head back to Ikebukero to meet up with Hikawa, who...
I figured out what I'm doing wrong, Demi-Fiend.
Oh god, what now?
In order to be a Shin Megami Tensei protagonist, I need to betray my friends, like you said.
Right, okay.
And my issue is, I don't have any fucking friends. Robin? Stop it.
Hikawa, you're pitiful. Anyway, this unlocks Mara, and sadly, Hardtype isn't on the HD version yet, so this cutscene contains 90% less dick jokes. So allow me to compensate. Mara has a few choices for moves. He'll either try and status you with Marin Karen or Makajamin, or he'll go in raw with Hell Thrust or Hades Blast. So naturally, you'll want to wear protection, but Kamuto might not be enough, as he'll be able to poke holes in your defense with Dismal Tune, which does over 400 damage unmitigated. Somehow we actually take less of a pounding from physical attacks than Dismal Tune, so I recommend Jed to no curse. However, more concerning is Mara's gimmick. With only 4,500 HP, Mara might not have as much health as the Moire Sisters or the Fiends, but what he lacks in bulk, he makes up for in stamina. If Mara takes any damage, he'll open the turn with Dear Rahim, ensuring he can go for a long time. You typically have two ways of dealing with this. Option 1 is to try and last longer than him and stay alive until he mills his 3,000 MP. However, that's no longer an option, as Zombero decided to give the long schlong 50,000 MP. This is more MP than literally any demon in the game whose name is not Lucifer. Round 2, 3, or 4, no matter what time of day it is, Mara's ready to go. This only leaves option 2, kill him in one turn. And right now, I'm just not packing enough heat. A focus boosted Divine Shot deals roughly 2,000 damage on a critical hit at +2. And I don't have access to anything with a bit more girth. However, that's when I remembered something from Deus's Nocturne Demon List video. Once Mara loses enough HP, he will hit a dialogue trigger. This causes him to start his turn with Dismal Tune before going into Dear Rahim. He will only do this once, so if we null Dismal Tune, we have one turn where we can prevent him from healing. This means we don't need to one-shot him, we can actually two-shot him. 2 focus-boosted critical Divine Shots will deal over 4,000 damage, which leaves him with less than 500 HP. Enough for a normal Divine Shot to take the kill. And with Divine Shot having a 30% crit rate, a back-to-back crit would be a 9% chance, which seemed possible. So I strapped in, got my Divine Shot nice and big, and retried the fight over and over until I was able to get that 9% double crit. From there, one more Divine Shot was enough to make Mara submit, unlocking the Moose Spell Magatama. Sayonara, shithead! With my monetization thoroughly gone, I decided to attempt Black Rider again, and had a bit of an epiphany. So the legions cannot be stoned, as they repel death. However, mute is not death. So even though they can't be completely incapacitated, their heavy preference towards using their skills makes mute a de facto stone. In the end, I was really just going about this the wrong way, and Black Rider goes down the first time I tried it with this strategy. It was at this point I started reaching encounters that I consider to be hard walls. Up first is Pale Rider. Unlike every rider prior to this one, Pale Rider summons 2 Loas as backup, and they are immune to any ailments we'd actually like to use. They can technically be hit by Mind Element ailments like Charm, but Mind ailments are all temporary and they resist Mind anyway. So unfortunately, we actually need to fight this one, and good god do I not like fighting this one. Pale Rider himself is fairly identical to his typical kit, although he did swap Void Ice for Resist Ice and Force Repel. The big issue is, as always, the Loas. On the plus side, they're not as toxic as usual, dropping Stone Gaze and Last Resort for Maragidyne. This means the Loas no longer have an instant kill and can't heal Pale Rider, since in the base game, Pale Rider very specifically heals off of damage dealt via Last Resort. However, this actually makes the fight more difficult to control, since we have to cover more elements than we have access to right now. We need to handle Physical to lower the damage from Pale Rider's Blight and the Loa's Venom Bite, Ice to cover Pale Rider's Mabufudine, and Fire to cover the Loa's Miragidine. In addition, Pale Rider still has 2 instant kills. The Loas have Dormina and will occasionally try to put you to sleep. If Pale Rider starts a turn while you're asleep, he'll cast Eternal Rest, instantly killing all sleeping targets. In addition, he also has Pestilence, a medium almighty attack that instant kills all poisoned targets. This makes Blight and Venomite even more scary, as if they get a lucky proc and Pale Rider has a turn, he can end the fight whenever he wants. I might have been able to take this guy, but for the time being, I decided to try something else and maybe try and get a bit stronger. Unfortunately, with the first 3 riders dead, that opens up the 3rd Kalpa. And with it, an old friend.
Afternoon, kid. You ever play Australian Murder Tag?
Okay, I know this video has been full of references to the first Nocturne run, but that's a bit obscure. I'm alive. Wait, he gets 2 pressed? I have no idea how Atlas crafted such a good chase sequence, but man, this one still finds a way to get me. Every time you think you figured out how way to sneak by Dante, he manages to sneak one in on you. Regardless, the chase sequence isn't all that eventful if you know what you're doing. Once you're done, heal up, and walk into the true fight. The Dante rematch opens with Dante having everything he had last fight at his disposal. In case you've forgotten, that's a guaranteed hit and 30% panic in bullet time, the extremely hard-hitting Rebellion, the defense-lowering Provoke, and E&I. However, after you deal enough damage, Dante will start using 2 new moves. Round Trip, a Maziodyne that lowers evasion by 1 stage, and Whirlwind, a Mazandine that is meant to lower accuracy by 1 stage, but is bugged, so it's just a meaty force hit. And if you get him low enough, he'll break out Showtime, which mercifully is still just a flavored Megidolon. I have expected Zombero to make this a debilitate. Now, evasion getting lowered isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not like Dante would be missing you anyway. But his physical attacks were still dealing enough damage that I decided to hold off until I could either bring Void Electric as a skill, or pick up Avenge or Retaliate. With little else to do, we make our way to Yoyogi Park, making sure to note the Collector Manikin's new shop as he sells fairly decent items, along with the Sophia, Vimana, and Kamarogi Magatamas, all of which we'll want at some point. Once we get to Yoyogi, we're stuck dealing with the fairies giving us the runaround. Thankfully, with our high-power toolkit consisting mostly of Death Touch, Divine Shot, and nothing else, most of Yoyogi's random encounters are manageable, though I do recommend keeping an eye on the moon. This area's full moon is a Satanta that takes the first turn, attacks, leaves, and then automatically reinforces with Kukulane. A fantastic bit of flavor considering they're canonically the same person, but this encounter is crazy. Kukulane will cast Dragon Eye every single turn, before making heavy use of Taunt, Sukukaja, Zandine, and a number of powerful physical attacks. Even physical resistance isn't enough to face tank the Hound of Kalad. If he shows up, throw out a smoke ball if you have one, because you don't want to get stuck in this fight. Finally, we reach Sakahagi at the end of Yoyogi Park, who I forgot to write into the script again. Girumakala miraculously has no changes whatsoever aside from his HP, which has gone from 4,000 to 10,000. He repels physical innately, and while normally that would mean we would need to take some form of magic spell to blast through his health, here we have Death Touch Gaming. And what it lacks in speed, it makes up for in Girumakala is barely able to tack on meaningful damage. This doesn't make the fight a pushover though, he still has a large number of status dealing abilities, including Panic Eye for Panic, Binding Cry for Bind, and Toxic Cloud to deal curse-based damage with a poison chance. Make sure you buff to +2 at some point during this fight. Take this slow and keep an eye on your health, and eventually Girumakala will go down. But sadly, that's not the end of the fight.
You're one hell of a monster. I used all that Magatsuhi to summon that demon, and look what happened! Enough of this! Anyone who gets in my way dies!
Sakahagi has a few new tools at his disposal. He now has the MP to use his all-target elemental attacks 4 times, so you'll have to deal with him hitting you with 2 elemental spells on his first 2 turns. If you really want to min-max this, you could come in with 4 magic mirrors to parry them, but it's not really necessary. The real issue is what happens after. Once he runs out of MP, he'll attempt to cast Megidolan unsuccessfully before pivoting to exclusively basic attacks. However, Hardtype has given him nearly every basic attack buff in the game. Attack All allows him to hit our entire party, which thankfully doesn't affect us. Might increases his crit rate, and instead of simply tripling it to 12%, it now goes up to 30%, and he even has Pierce, which allows him to ignore our physical resistance. Which, fun fact, now also applies to his magic attacks. So if you came in with an immunity to an element, no you didn't. We can only thank Zombero for not giving him Drain Attack, because otherwise this might have been impossible. Oh, and did I mention this mod gives him an additional 20,000 health? Thankfully, you get the first turn after Sakahagi comes out, so I recommend using it to Fog Breath him. You should already be at +2 evasion from the Guru Makala fight, so putting him at -2 accuracy is important. From there, use Death Touch to stay alive until he misses, then hit him with War Cry. You should now be able to safely whittle him down with Death Touch, although if he ever misses again, you can focus up and throw out a Divine Shot to speed things up. However you do it, slowly whittle him away, and Sakahagi will go down same as before. Come on! Yeah! Fuck! How can I lose to a guy like this? You knocked your last turn! It's at this point we get my favorite cutscene in the game, where Oberon mentions how he saw Deus come here and escape from Sakahagi before we took him down. Before realizing that he, A, has no way to know we know who Deus is, and B, has no way to know we would care what he's doing. Before realizing what he just told us was completely irrelevant to what was happening and fucking off. I love how the game has literally no way to tell you to go to Ikebukero, so they just have to have Oberon hold up a sign that tells us that's where the plot is. So I guess we should probably listen and go check up on Deus, see how he's doing. Alright, bad time. We'll talk to him later. Speaking of friends, hey GameChamp, how's it going?
So you're telling me all I need to do is summon demons to fight for me, and then I can reshape the entire world?
I mean, that's what everyone else is doing, so whatever floats your boat.
Alright, let me try. Fool who walks without demons! Your choice will have you walk a path of pain and torment. Have you what it takes to put yourself to the grindstone?
Yes?
Have you the resolve to bend yourself until you break?
Yeah, sure, Miss Rorschach.
Good. Is this normal for these games?
Shockingly so. Anyway, this unlocks the fight against Black Frost, who is thankfully still pretty easy. We still have Void Ice from the Moire sisters, so coming in with Null Death off of Anathema makes us completely immune to everything Black Frost has except for Berserk, which can only hit us for half our health at most. Or rather, it would, except Hardtype swaps out Diorama for Marahidine, which can consistently do more than half of our health even at +2 defense and -2 attack. Thankfully, Null Ice and Death should give you enough space to get those buffs up fairly easily, and he prefers his Ice and Death moves, so you should be able to keep yourself alive with Death Touch Gaming until he goes down, giving us the power of Satan. Now, Hijiri decides that he's going to get into the race for world creation, but the second he does, Nyarly just goes, nope, and yeets him into Amala. Unable to do anything to the other bosses we're stuck on, we hop in and find Nyarly just chilling in Amala.
Fuck, what are you doing here?
Nyarly asks us to help him clear out the nearby Amala Temples, and I'll help a brother out, but on the way out, we get stopped by our old Amala friend, the Spectre. Now, Spectre 3 is just here to kill itself at you. It legitimately has no other options but basic attack and last resort. This, thankfully, means they have no way to control buff and debuff state, but they're still accurate enough to be an issue, and they have too much health to be killed off quickly. In addition, once you kill a Spectre, the next turn, one of the remaining Spectres will usually use Gathering to summon another. Now, I had heard that this was time-based, and I was in a comfortable enough position that I could survive for however long I needed. So I buffed up and used healing items in Death Touch Gaming to stall for over 100 turns. So I kind of doubt it's actually time-based. However, my stream chat suggested that it might actually be kill-based. So I upgraded Ki Blast to Hades Blast, which is awesome because my joke still works, and after a few more turns of mindless slaughter, I managed to make the specters just decide to blow themselves up after 10 specters go down. With this, we arrive at the Amala Temples, with myself and Nyarly having a common goal. He wants to awaken his god, I want more bosses to kill. Win-win. But before we do that, I decided that Kinki had lived for too goddamn long. Unfortunately, he was still too powerful. The issue really comes down to the fact that he is consistently buffing with Tarukaja and Vakukaja, while also nerfing our defense with Vakunda. Kinki requires us to maintain buff state, healing, and damage, and that's simply too much with the damage he's dealing. But that's when I realized Kinki has no options that are not physical. Meaning if we had enough attack mirrors, we could literally make him defeat himself. I'ma be real, when I write these scripts, I like to maintain an air of, oh, then I did this, and then I did this, hooray, because that's what makes the most sense narratively. But for this, I've been trying Kinki on and off since I beat Suiki and Fuki, getting nowhere every time. Do you know how embarrassing it is to be balls deep into Nocturne's story and getting walled by this fuck? So you know what? I take what win I can. I went and grinded up a shitload of attack mirrors, which is to say I killed the enemies that dropped the gems that let me buy attack mirrors from Rag's Jewelry, and soft reset until I got what I wanted, so I could keep my level as low as possible, and then with my stock ready, motherfucker has 6k HP, right? Yep. The world needs you more than me. From there we reach the final Oni in the chain, Ongyo-Ki.
Foul sorcerer, how dare you cast me through time with your fell magics?
Wait, huh? What?
What you've done to me, I can't forgive.
Whatever that was about, Ongyo-Ki is one of the few fights that is different less in terms of HP and more in terms of kit. He only gains an extra 1400 HP, going up to 6900, nice, but has subbed out Tarukaja for Debilitate, and Tsukukaja for Megiddo. This gives Ongyo-Ki a lot more to do and makes him significantly more of a threat. While the overall gimmick of him creating replicas that can only be identified under the full moon is the same, the threat those guys pose is significantly greater, due to how much harder they hit and how much more they have at their disposal. Not to mention, Ongyo-Ki was held back by his physical skills in the original game. In base Nocturne, Dark Sword and Stasis Blade both had a high 40% crit rate and status affliction rate, but only a 60% chance to actually hit. In Hardtype, these moves have been buffed dramatically, gaining 5% additional crit rate and going up to 92% accuracy. Even Mudoon is now scary. Even if you're doing well, one of the Ongyo-Kis can just scam a win. On my winning attempt, I elected to grab Void Death and Retaliate, giving us an above average chance to respond to Ongyo-Ki's many physical attacks by deleting one copy if it's a copy, or all copies if it's the real one, while also eating turns if they go for Mudoon. And with this, I was just barely able to sneak out a win. There we go! Okay! Thank God! Fuck! Except not really. See, Void Death was a bit of an impulse grab, and I knew I'd probably want it for Beelzebub and his 100% guaranteed death-based instant kill. So, satisfied for the time being with beating Ongyo-Ki in theory, I reloaded to a point before I grabbed Void Death, and moved on back to the Amala Temples. There are 3 bosses here for us to tackle, Albion, Asiel, and Scotty. Up first we took on Albion, who summons 4 mini-me's as backup. Each of the small fries have color-coded affinities. Red repels fire and is weak to ice, yellow repels electric and is weak to force, etc. The only real change here, aside from Albion now having 10,000 HP and the Zoa having 4,500, is that Albion himself is now immune to physical, which makes this fight take slightly longer, but not all that much. The gimmick of this fight is that if Albion goes down, the Zoa will use their turn to revive him, and if all the Zoas go down, Albion will use his turn to revive them. However, since Albion only does this if all the Zoa are dead, we just need to make sure that the last Zoa goes down at the same time as Albion. I still had Void, Ice, and Force as skills, and came in with Gehenna for Drain Fire, so the only thing that could damage me with spells was the Electric Zoa, so I took him out first using Death Touch. With him gone, I could now spam my Zeo Rocks to hit the green one's weakness without hitting the yellow one's repel. Once green goes down, swap to Fire or Ice items, then once the last Zoa is within a single hit of death, swap to Focusing Albion with Death Touch. Once he's too close to hit again, throw out one final Mabufu rock, and tap the fight in with whatever item or skill you prefer. This also unlocks the Adama Magatama, a useful electric-based Magatama we'll use later. Up next is Scotty, who has actually seen quite a change for Hardtype. She's gained Drain Ice as an affinity and swapped Mazandine for Niflheim, a new Hardtype move that does mega ice damage to all targets while also lowering evasion. Earthquake has also been buffed to now have a chance to stun, though it still mercifully can't crit unless you're frozen or shocked. Scotty's changes require a bit of change in strategy, but not one we aren't prepared for. See, I made sure to keep Void Ice all the way until this fight, because I knew that they had changed Scotty to have a focus on ice, and taking Scotty without physical resistance and Void Ice would be a nightmare. I'd been thinking 2 steps ahead for the entire run, but this is when I really started planning things out, calling on all my knowledge of this game so I could make as many right choices as possible. Between my own knowledge and me looking up various resources on Hardtype, I've been able to keep 2 steps ahead of this game for a while. And while it's not been easy, it helped me considerably, and makes this significantly more possible. It does take a couple of goes, mostly because we neglected to cover Thunderclap, and while I would love to take Void Expel, trust me, there's a reason I'm not taking Void Expel. But with a bit of elbow grease, we were able to take down Scotty in a couple of attempts. Then we come to Asiel. Asiel has seen 2 notable changes. The first is to his unique move, Black Sun. No, I'm not even touching that name, this video's on thin ice as it is. Black Sun now only reduces you to 100 HP, but seeing as the changes the buffs and debuffs prevent us from taking less than 100 damage anyway, 100 HP may as well be 1. Secondly, it now also applies Deikaja, which renders half of the above point moot. But the second change is more insidious. Mana Drain has been replaced with Hellfang. This means that rather than attempting to mill your MP before killing you, Asiel will just try to kill you before killing you. Unfortunately, this change does something very funny to Asiel's kit. By removing Mana Drain, Asiel has lost his only non-physical option. This means, identical to Kinky, Asiel can now be entirely walled by attack mirrors. Also, fun fact, the way repels work in Nocturne, the enemy takes the damage you would have taken. So it's actually better for us to not resist physical for these fights, as it doubles the value of every attack mirror. With the Amala Temples done, we see Nyarly toss Hijiri into the Kool-Aid, which is fine as he is barely a character. And Nyarly summons his god.
Like the look of my god, he will carry us upon his back to a new land. A land free from Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. I'll call him Noah. Get it? Because he looks like an arc.
So it's true. A reason has been conceived.
We must alert Deus. If he does not act fast, the mannequins will not receive their happy ending.
Oh, Deus is giving the mannequins a happy ending. That's nice. Though, the mannequins are part of Nocturne. After everything I've done, so many bodies at my feet, can I truly say I've destroyed Nocturne if the mannequins are alive? I said I'd destroy this game, but do I have to kill innocents to... No. I said I gave no fucks about their situation in 2020, and I'm not about to start now. I'm not here to win. I'm here to dominate. And nothing is going to stand in my way. Mifunashiro was filled with angels looking to protect the mannequins, as well as a full moon encounter with Dionysus, who can be walled with void fire or better, so don't worry about him too much. Ironically, the hardest fights here are against the mannequins themselves. But with their weak physical attacks, it's not like they're capable of much. Plus, they're dropping beads, so they're actually pretty worth it for us to kill. With that, there's nothing to stop us from reaching the bottom.
What do you mean? It would never do something like that.
I foresaw it the day I met him. Deus, you must put a stop to this madness before he can make his way through. Oh god, he's here already!
Oh, fuck. You're not really trying to stop the mannequin from getting a reason, are you? We can give them an ending. You wouldn't stop that, would you?
Hi, editing Robin. I feel the need to step in because I've completely changed this scene for the sake of my own narrative. So Chiaki, played by Deus, is here killing all the mannequins, and the angels are on her side. This is the singular fight in the game which actually offers you a decision. If you have enough alignment points towards Chiaki, you can side with her, which prompts a fight against Futomimi. If you side against her, or don't have enough points, you fight the Archangels Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel instead. But for the sake of completion, I elected to do both fights, reloading in order to do so. Okay? Okay, cool. Thanks, back to the show, sorry to interrupt.
No, he's too far gone. Deus, continue your ritual. I shall end this fiend myself. Your hands will not be stained with the blood of another soul.
Futomimi, like Sakahagi before him, has also seen a dramatic upgrade. He's gone from 5,500 HP to 20,000, dropped Lunge for Fangbreaker, a new Hardtype move that lowers your physical attack on hit, picked up Might for his basic attack, and also swapped Mute Gaze for Biden Blast. That motherfucker stole our move! And since Futomimi gets the first turn, it's entirely possible, if he gets lucky and you don't resist physical, for him to kill you before you even get a turn. I'll show it off one time. Alright, there we go. But for all his substantial changes, and he does have them, he's unfortunately susceptible to one crucial design flaw, having absolutely nothing but physical attacks. So for the sake of maximizing damage, we go in without resist physical, and we just need to survive the first hit without resistances.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Futomimi, I will carry on your legacy. Robin, for the sake of all the mannequins, I will fight to the end to win their freedom.
Hold on, Returning to the before timeline, I went back to Ongyo-Ki to finally take him down. However, I still didn't have Void Death, and I was nowhere near fighting Beelzebub either, so I decided to make use of a different strategy. The Luster Glitch. Recall, if you will, my explanation of the glitch. The Satraja Rock will luster your entire party, and the Mirage Rock will buff the entire enemy party. So someone in my stream chat asked to see what the game would do if I did that in the Ongyo-Ki fight. What? Let's not do that. The reason for this is a strange interaction with the Luster Glitch and Ongyo-Ki's Replicate. See, all of the Ongyo-Kis are technically the same Ongyo-Ki. Something about an all-target Luster Candy buffing Ongyo-Ki and the Replicates, while the game knows it needs to be deleting said Replicates, causes the game to soft lock, with all but the music completely ceasing to function. However, this brings up the obvious next question. What if our attack is single target? Thankfully, we have multiple single target options that affect enemies. The Spyglass is an easy one, but the basic attack also functions for some weird reason. Now, I don't know the exact reason for this, so I'm not going to pretend to, but if we hit a Replicate with the Luster Glitch, the game knows we hit, but also knows that we affected the true Ongyo-Ki as we buffed him. So it banishes every other Ongyo-Ki from reality, including the real one. And while the Replicate can absolutely go into the pattern where he summons more of himself, which does recreate the true Ongyo-Ki, he can also just swing for damage, which means all we need to do is hit the duplicate one more time, and we leave Ongyo-Ki falling through time and space. Who knows where he'll end up. With Ongyo-Ki banished, I returned to the Pale Rider fight now that I had Retaliate, and shockingly, that made all the difference. Drain Fighter from Gehenna combined with Void Ice gives me coverage on all of the fight's elementals. And while I do still have to deal with physical, Retaliate allows me to drop the skulls while also tacking damage on. This was shockingly all I needed for this fight. My overall game plan was solid enough that I just needed a small amount of extra gas to push me over the edge. With Pale Rider dead, I no longer needed Void Ice. And it was at this point I could finally make a pivot I'd been waiting to make. See, I said I was avoiding taking Dante until I had Void Electric. And we've technically been able to take that for quite some time, ever since we got the Narukami Magatama from Thor. But in Hardtype, one skill prior to learning Void Electric, we learn a new move. And this move was the single factor that pushed me to holding off on Void Electric until now. Because we've been waiting on this for a while. What could be worth that much, you ask?
I have the power of God!
I'm sure anyone who's familiar with Nocturne's base game knows how strong Freikugel is. Mjolnir is an electric-type Freikugel. Same power, same raw force. I avoided grabbing Void Electric because I knew the second I did, I was also grabbing this. I knew I was upgrading to grab an extra 100 damage to just lay people out. Sure, I can't focus anymore,
but just look at the power I've gained.
We use this to make our way down to Dante to push his shit in. Death Touch and Beads keep us alive, while Retaliate pushes Dante lower and lower until he reaches his second phase. At this point, he swaps to exclusively using Round Trip and Whirlwind. If you suffer any debuffs from E and I, use this opportunity to rebuff and heal up. You're basically completely safe during this segment. Once you hit his third phase, Dante adds Showtime to the rotation, so you'll want to kill him sooner rather than later. On the one hand, Showtime isn't the scariest thing in the world. 2 Showtimes leaves us with 35% HP left, which we can easily Death Touch off. However, since E and I, Provoke, and Rebellion are now back in the rotation, Dante now has one-shot potential, and Bullet Time means he can status you into a kill shot. Do not give him any breathing room. Keep the pressure on, and with a bit of luck, Dante goes down. With Dante dead, we head back to Mifunashiro.
What do you mean? He would never do something like that.
I foresaw it the day I met him. Deus, you must put a stop to this madness before he can make his way through.
What the? How did you?
Who said Bites the Dust isn't a skill in this game? As I said earlier, the Archangels of literal fucking heaven are who you fight if you go against Deus. Gabby, Raph, and Uriel have changed their kits, but not exactly their strategy. Aside of all of them now having 13,000 HP, Gabriel remains the premier source of damage, though she swaps Holy Wrath and Radiance for Zeodyne and Blight, which actually gives this fight a poison chance. Raphael drops Diarahin for Diorama and Mediarama, probably because Diarahin would be silly on this team, and his Tetrakarn is still AoE, in spite of Hardtype changing Tetrakarn and Makarakarn to be single target, so that's fair. And Uriel has picked up the Radiance that Gabriel dropped, while still retaining Prominence and Megiddola. Thankfully, Void Electric locks down most of Gabriel's kit now, and Drain Fire stops Uriel's most damaging option in Prominence. However, they lack Dekunda or Dekaja, meaning if they let you Luster up and Warcry and Fog Breath them down, you've basically already won. Focus down Raphael first to get rid of their healing, and then focus on whichever Archangel you want dead first. I recommend Uriel, but it's totally up to you. From there, Deus evolves into Baal Avatar, and
I am Baal Avatar, paragon of virtue, bringer of justice. I will bring about a kingdom of peace, in honor of those who have lost their lives. The next time I find you, Robin, I will not forgive you.
I'm starting to think I'm the bad guy here. Regardless, with Mifunashiro completed, the path to the Diet Building is completed, and with it, the way to Trumpeter.
Is there any chance I could just,
Hell yeah! We could make our way to the Diet Building right away, but before we do that, I handed off one of my many cheerleaders to die in the mines. After around 7 moon cycles pass, this dude will walk the demon you give to death in order to bust through. I recommend grabbing any 2 chests that aren't the one to your immediate left, as that one contains the Keymon Stone we came here to get. It's useless to the guy, so he gives it to you anyway. From there, head north from the Asakusa tunnels and unseal the temple, revealing my favorite PTSD trip, Bishaman. Bishaman's first fight is actually quite unique now. He swaps from a weakened version of his kit in the second fight to an entirely new one. Prominence is dropped for Via Via, a heavy random target force move with a chance to stun. Holy Wrath and Diarahin are dropped for Sukunda, Tsukukaja, Taunt, and Deathbound, making him able to nerf your accuracy and defenses while also making him harder to hit. And of course, his HP increases from 4,567 to a whopping 33,000. And he swaps his Fire Repel for Force Repel while also now being neutral to fire and ice. He also has Attack All, but we don't exactly care about that. He also still has Hasahapa for crit fishing and Focus to boost his physical attacks to insane levels. All of these things make Bishaman 1 a much more potent combatant, and debatably more difficult than the fight will take later, due to this one not having a weakness. Deathbound being able to hit once or twice can be scary, so you should always assume it'll hit twice, lest you be caught off guard. Thankfully, he doesn't start using buffs and debuffs until you do enough damage, so you'll have some setup time. So long as he's friendly to your buff state, you can take him down in no time at all, unlocking the Gundari Magatama. Gundari is hands down the most important Magatama for us in the game. Wind Cutter, Force Trade, and Magic Boost are all fantastic options in Hardtype. However, and I cannot stress this enough, do not take anything off of Gundari unless you know it's safe. With this, we arrive to the penultimate dungeon of the main game, the Diet Building. And we are immediately faced with a problem, oh joy. Surt isn't too different from before. He still has a heavy reliance on fire attacks, and his basic attack still deals fire damage. However, Gehenna isn't the win button it used to be. He still has Hell Thrust, which has received a slight power bump and a huge accuracy boost, so boosting our evasion won't be enough to dodge cheese him anymore. He also still has Dakunda, but swaps Tempest for Warcry, which means it'll be fairly difficult to keep your damage up. However, since he usually won't be doing much damage back to you, Death Touch should still keep you alive. The first time I took this fight, I grabbed Drain Fire as a skill and used physical resistance to make this fight a cakewalk. But then I remembered I might need that skill later as well. So I reloaded and beat the fight again using Gehenna. It'll be a little bit more dangerous without physical resistance, but it's still doable. Mada retains his status as the hardest diet building fight. Intoxicate now deals damage, so we pick up Void Mind off Murakumo because we're going to need it anyway later. This fight requires you to account for so many things. Mada packs an extremely hard-hitting Agidine, alongside Hades Blast, Dakunda, and Debilitate. And the Pazuzu he summons have Tentarafu, Arid Needle, which can inflict stone, Wet Wind, and worst of all, Mediarama. Considering he can summon up to 4 of them, we need to deal with them quickly, but don't be too hasty with the murder. If you drop 1, he'll just summon more. The correct option here is to go for Maka Jam Rocks. Once muted, this prevents them from healing or doing any real damage to you. This, alongside a lot of lustering up to keep ourselves able to tank the occasional Agidine, makes the fight almost doable, if not for one issue. Mute does not prevent the Pazuzu from using Arid Needle. And while the odds we get stoned by Arid Needle are only 17.5% when accounting for Demifiend's hidden resistance to Expel and Death, the more times we roll the dice, the greater the odds they'll come up tails eventually. I kept getting really far, but I was just barely not able to bring it home. And that's when Megidomon, who was watching in chat, told me something I actually didn't know about this game.
Tetraja Rocks make you null Expel and Death until you get hit by one of those elements, and null Death makes you immune to stone. So a Tetraja Rock makes you immune to stone until you get hit by a Death skill.
I was stunned. He was completely right. Tetraja Rocks give you null Expel and Death until you get hit by one of those elements. And Arid Needle is not a death attack. It's a physical attack with a death type status. And since Mada lacks a death skill and the Pazuzus will be muted for the entire fight, one Tetraja Rock makes us permanently immune to stone. Also, before you ask, no, this doesn't make you permanently immune to Beelzebub's death flies. That still only works once. But with this, the fight was now just barely in my control enough that I could call down the wrath of God upon him. Fuck out of my house! Up next is Mott, who now has Maragidine and swaps Makakaja for Cadenza, a new hard-type buff skill. Since hard-type has made it so Tarukaja buffs both physical and magical attacks, Cadenza now buffs magic attack as well as accuracy with all skills. This means Mott is very likely to hit you very hard, and with 20,000 more HP, he's not gonna go down easy. However, he is still weak to electric and has no way to prevent us from buffing. So once we're at full tilt, we're capable of dealing around 2,300 damage per turn to the guy. However, this does not make Mott easy. Just like Clotho, Mott has Diorama, and his healing is based on his magic stat. Without buffs, one Diorama will heal him for around 3,000, so make sure you keep his attack debuffed if he uses too many cadenzas. He does have the Kunda, but he's not super aggressive with it, so you can usually keep him debuffed. Oh, and of course... Alright. 1! Beastide! Beastide! 2! Beastide! 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 Beast Eye! 3! Beast Eye! 4! Beast Eye! All my progress gone! Beast Eye! Fuck! He can do that. But so long as he doesn't do it too much, this fight's fairly easy. With Mott dead, there are no longer any fights in the future that are weak to electric. So we drop Mjolnir for Wind Cutter, which deals around 13% more damage. And we're going to need it for the hardest fight this run has had to deal with so far. Mother Harlot, or simply the Harlot in Hardtype, ain't here to give you a kiss on the cheek anymore. She's packing multiple small tweaks, which make up a very frightening whole. Compared to the fights surrounding her, her HP hasn't gone up all that much, only going from 5,000 to 18,500. However, it's her new moves that really shake things up. First, she subs out Mazionga for Maziodyne, increasing her overall electric damage, which is why we kept Void Electric since we picked it up following Pale Rider. Up next, she drops Makajaman for Taunt, which, since we basically sit at +2 offense the entire fight, is an on-demand -2 to our defense for her. But most importantly, are her unique options. Deathlust has been renamed into Babylon Goblet, an almighty element Secunda that also applies a mind element panic. And Beast Roar has been renamed Deathlust. Confusing naming aside, Deathlust now has a mind element charm on top of being an almighty attack that heals her. The heal has been lowered from 6% down from 10, however her increased HP ends up boosting the healing from 500 to 1,110. Mother Harlot has a disgusting amount of synergy in her kit. Taunt will ensure that even if you void Mind and Electric to block her elementals and status, she can still rack up damage on you frighteningly quickly, even through physical resistance, especially if she uses Focus first. Babylon Goblet will also debuff your accuracy, making it harder for you to sustain yourself using Death Touch Gaming. All the while Death Lust undoes all of your progress in an instant. Wait, Death Touch Game... Death Lust... Oh heavens no. While Mother Harlot doesn't have Dekaja, her debuffs do enough to keep you honest. And don't forget, you can still be brought to -4 whenever she wants. Meaning she can put you at -4 accuracy or -4 defense, the latter of which is extremely scary. As at -4, she has multiple different options for an OTK. The only saving grace is that while she does have the Kunda, she doesn't always use it. Every 4 turns, she'll use Dragon Eye to gain 4 additional actions, and if she has any debuffs on her when she does, she'll use Dakunda. This pattern means you can actually debuff her, so I recommend Fog Breath to help you weave through her onslaught of focus-boosted basic attacks and Deathlust Gaming. And the worst part? Even if you do dodge Deathlust, she still heals. This fight is a slog, because Mother Harlot can literally decide to use this move as much as she pleases. Even taking Electric Drain off of Adama, which cancels her entire turn if she uses Maziodyne, this fight is torture, because Mother Harlot literally has to decide not to heal. I recommend a calculator for this fight so you can more accurately track her health, since once she drops below 8,000, she'll enter her second phase, where she uses Dragon Eye every 2 turns. Thankfully, she still only uses Dakunda every 4, but this extra Dragon Eye makes her significantly more threatening, as well as increasing the odds she'll decide to use Deathlust. Though if she ever heals herself above 8,000 HP, she'll revert to her original pattern, so once she goes below 8,000, you can usually keep her there. I say usually because one time I got her all the way down to under 6,000, only for her to heal all the way to full and then kill me. I recommend getting comfortable being debuffed. At level 110 with 40 agility, my base accuracy was so high that I never saw myself miss while I was at -1, so I basically ignored it unless she pushed me any lower. And while she could one-turn me at -2 defense, she had to get lucky in order to do so I only really removed debuffs if I found myself at -4. Otherwise, lustering up for +1 was usually an easier solution, and helped me mitigate both defense and evasion nerfs. But sometimes, you're just going to have to be comfortable playing things by ear. But with enough luck and a lot of wind cutters for damage, Mother Harlot will eventually decide not to live anymore, and you will be allowed to move on. Okay, that's frustrating. Okay. Not my favorite. I would take a taunt right now. Any debuff. Okay, that's not good. Okay, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Please. Please. I didn't want the debuff anymore. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I cannot sit at -3. I will implode to a bad combo. Come on. Okay. 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 Oh my god. Oh my god. Everyone shut the fuck up. Everyone shut the fuck up. Yes! We done it! Get absolutely fucked! Yes! It was at this point I hit the biggest wall so far. And of course, it's exactly who you think it is. Trumpeter only makes a few changes, but those changes compound to the worst thing ever. Trumpeter is effectively still the same fight he was last run. At the start of the fight, he'll cast Holy Melody, healing the unit with the lowest percentage of HP to their full HP and MP. 4 turns later, he casts Evil Melody, instantly killing the target with the lowest percentage, skipping himself. He then repeats this cycle, looping between Holy and Evil Melody every 4 turns. If we have the skill Endure, we can survive the first of these at 1 HP, but after the second, we die. This means we need to defeat Trumpeter in under 12 turns. Sounds simple, right? Well, that's where Hardtype comes in. Firstly, Trumpeter has gone from 11,000 HP to 28,000. Secondly, Trumpeter now opens on Warcry. Thirdly, he now usually follows up Evil Melody with Megidolon. Fourthly, he now follows up all Holy Melodies after the first with Dekaja. All of these changes elevate Trumpeter from the realm of barely possible to literally impossible. We need to remove the Warcry at the start, or else we'll be dealing 25% less damage for the entire fight. We then also need to buff our offense to be able to deal as much damage as possible, while also increasing our odds of dodging an attack to make Megidolon miss, heal ourselves afterwards, but also remembering to have our HP be low enough that we get healed by the second Holy Melody, while also keeping in mind that we'll be losing our buffs after the second Holy Melody as well. And through all of that, we still need to remember the goal here. 28,000 1,000 damage. Wind Cutter is currently dealing around 1,233 damage at +2, or 833 at neutral. And Spiral Viper deals even less unless it crits. If I want Spiral Viper strats to work like they did in Nocturne, I would need it to crit literally 8 times in a row. Considering Spiral Viper's 30% crit rate, that would give me a 0.006561% chance of success. Not even a percent of a percent. This was the run's breaking point. I spent an entire stream just testing ideas and strategies, trying everything to figure out exactly what combination of skills and levels would provide the highest probability of victory, if victory was even possible. And after 3 hours live and several more hours off screen, I made this. I leveled up 100 times and selected the most optimal set of skills to give me the highest chance of success. Playing offense is Spiral Viper and Wind Cutter. Spiral Viper gives us high damage along with a solid crit chance for extra turns, and Wind Cutter, alongside Magic Boost, a new Hardtype skill which acts as Fire, Ice, Electric, and Force boosts all packed into one, goes for pure, raw DPS. Side note, all boost passives have been nerfed to a 30% increase, down from 50%. Otherwise, this would have been possible around 40 levels earlier. Playing defense is Endure for the first evil melody, along with nearly a full suite of drains. Ice, Electric, and Force Drain, along with Shiranui for Void Fire. Taking Void Fire over Drain Fire is actually intentional. Trumpeter actually changes his skills on a pattern, using Electric and Ice after Holy Melody, and Fire and Force after Evil Melody. Since we actually want to be low on HP before the Holy Melody, Void Fire gives us a better chance of being at a lower percent than Trumpeter. Finally, our singular debuff skill, Taunt. I experimented with Fog Breath as it would give us the highest chance of dodging the Megidolon, but without Taunt's defense buff, we just couldn't put enough damage on the board. This was the perfect setup, the best I thought I could do, though it came at a heavy loss, as to make this perfect Trumpeter setup, we had to sacrifice the one skill that got us here in the first place. Death Touch. I need to make this abundantly clear. I joked about Death Touch Gaming being the savior of the run, but this was a quintessential part of my entire kit. From 40th to Mother Harlot, this was an integral part of my survivability. Not having it would have made so many fights so much worse, if not downright impossible. The idea of going out it was scary. Even as I crafted my final kit, I wondered if maybe I could not take a drain and keep Death Touch just in case. But without all of those immunities, the fight was simply too inconsistent. It had to be done. After being garbage tier in every SMT and Persona game before and after, Death Touch finally had its time to shine. But it was sadly time for it to go. Farewell, Death Touch Gaming. May we meet again someday. And yet, despite all of our planning, all of our sacrifice, I still wasn't getting results. I wasn't dodging the Megidolon, or if I did, I didn't get the crits I needed, or if I did, I just wasn't low enough for the Holy Melody. I kept throwing myself at the wall, and I was so close, but I just wasn't able to string it together. So, we took one last look at our options. Having Void Force instead of Force Drain would mean that Trumpeter couldn't heal us before going for the second Holy Melody. But it would also mean Trumpeter going for basic attacks during that part of the fight would be considerably more threatening. Magma Axis was on the table, and even outdamaged Wind Cutter, but considering Magma Axis had been buffed to treat Repel and Drain as null, something which combos with Pierce to make it a magic Freikugel, I didn't feel comfortable pulling that plug yet. This left us to the only thing remaining, our choice of physical skill. Spiral Viper is good. It's the strongest single physical hit that's not Freikugel, and has a respectable crit rate. But I wasn't getting the crits I felt I should be. So I assessed my options. Deadly Fury would have been fantastic, but it's learned after Void Death. Javelin Rain, Xenos Speed, and even Gaia Rage would actually deal less damage with the same crit rate, if not worse, and Iron Claw Gaming is no longer accessible by the Demi-Feed. But that's when Zephhyr, who was also watching my stream, noticed one final option, Bloodbath. a new physical skill added in Hardtype that deals 3 to 5 hits to random targets. Just as with Terrorblade, this means it'll either hit Trumpeter once or twice with a power of 31. This means it'll either do half as much damage as Spiral Viper or equal damage. The catch? A 50% crit rate. It was a gamble, but at this point, I was willing to try anything.
67. I was so happy too because I actually got the right RNG seed. Alright. Please fuck off. Please fuck off. Okay. Alright, we're on it. We're on it. Wind Cutter. Alright. Wind Cutter. An actual attempt. Alright. Bloodbath. Alright. I think we're actually on pace. 4292. Yeah, no, we're lower. We're lower. We are lower. Bloodbath only hits once. It can hit twice. Alright. We're 2,000 damage shy. So, we're gonna need some big crits. Okay, wait. Maybe. 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 Okay, hang on. So I just did 2929. Let me pull up another calculator real quick. Because we might have it, or we might need a gamble. So 2929 times 3 is 87. I think we got it. I think we got it. I think we have it. I think we've got 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 it. We fucking got it. We fucking got it. Get the fuck out of here, you fuck. Yeah!
Considering it took me over 100 attempts last time, I'd say 67 attempts is pretty solid. With the final candelabrum obtained, the world was now open to me. I could safely learn whatever skills I wanted and move on towards the endgame. Here's what I would say if I wasn't facing a new problem. See, remember when I said I leveled 100 times? Well, with those 100 levels, plus an extra one to learn Bloodbath, I was at level 211. And Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne caps you at level 255. Remember what I said earlier about learning skills? We are only offered new skills when we level up. So if we hit level 255, we can't level up, meaning we can't learn new skills. This means we are 44 levels away from being locked into whatever skills we have at the time. We needed to fit every single skill change we need for every remaining boss into those 44 levels. And if we fail to do so, we soft lock the entire challenge 120 hours in. It was at this point I began to absorb every resource I could. I called on Ash Coop's videos on solo Hardtype with 2 press turns, Jim Reaper's low-level runs, I texted all my SMT buddies, Zephhyr, Jaffinator, King Titanite, Deus, all of whom were integral parts of me forming a strategy to plan out the rest of the ride. Not to mention, all of those who tuned in for a stream or two to toss in their 2 cents. I've been playing the villain this entire time, but it was around this point I started to realize it wasn't just me who wanted to see this done. For the first time, what I was doing dawned on me. I was walking truly untreaded ground. People thought this run would be impossible, but now we looked ahead and saw possibility. When I started this run, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, the assumption I might fail in my mind. Now, failure didn't seem like an option anymore. I was so close, and now I saw just how many people I had at my back. So, I ask again, can you beat Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne Hardtype without using any demons? We have 44 levels to find out. With Trumpeter down, I leveled to 212 and finally pulled the plug on Void Death. This, alongside any Magatama that nulls Expel, makes us completely immune to Mitra's Mahamon and Mamudu. The main issue with Mitra is that he alternates between 2 random options. He will either cast Dragon Eye, followed up by Debilitate, Mamudoon, and Mahamon, or he will cast Megidola. I'm sorry, the name of the skill is wrong. He casts Megidola Dying. I swear to God, this move hits so hard, I think it's 4 times as strong as a standard Megidola. Thankfully, with our stats so grossly inflated, this fight isn't much to talk about. While Megidola Dying can still kill us, he prefers his Debilitate combo, so as long as we keep him relatively under control, we can burst down his 30,000 HP without too much hassle. With Trumpeter dead, we can also now access the 4th Kalpa of Amala and fight Beelzebub, for whom we actually don't even need to rotate out any skills. Though Ice Drain is still doing sweet FA, Electric and Force Drain shut down the larger part of Beelzebub's kit. This allows us to spend his entire first phase setting up before we push him past his first HP threshold. At this point, he'll start using Silent Prayer, a new move that acts as a full screen Dekaja and Dekuna. This would theoretically remove any buffs he had as well, but since he doesn't have any buff spells, this isn't much to talk about. The only real matter of concern here is Death Flies, an extremely strong almighty attack that also has a 100% chance to instantly kill you. Thankfully, that instant kill is Death type, so Void Death makes this fight a lot easier. This is why we waited so long to take Void Death, so if you didn't want to glitch kill Ongyo-Ki, you can go back and do that now. At this point, the only real thing Beelzebub can do to kill us is cast Death Flies twice, which he can do, but that would still require 2 high damage rolls to actually kill us. This was definitely a bit lucky, but we killed the Lord of the Flies on our first try.
We are 2 Death Flies from winning. We are 1 Death Fly from winning. We've been low rolling actually. Maybe not. Maybe 2. Yeah, we got him! Oh my God, we did so well today! Fucking first try. First tried him. Actually first tried him.
From there, we make our way to the Amala Temples for a second, just to confront Hikawa in the Diet.
I finally figured it out. You're the only one who is here with me this entire time. You're the only friend I have here. If I want to be an SMT protagonist, I have to kill you with the power of my god, Aramas.
Aradia, go! Stop him from destroying the world!
As you wish. Displor number 3.
Your demon causes game errors.
Now here comes the second choice in the game. Similar to the decision in Mafuta Shiro, Hikawa gives you an option here, but unlike back then, he will always give you this choice. Refuse to stand aside and you will fight Samael. Agree and you'll skip the entire fight. Normally this gets you so many points towards Hikawa's alignment that you're almost guaranteed to get his ending, but if you're already locked into or plan to lock yourself into the true demon ending, this doesn't really matter as the TDE always takes priority. Thus the Samael fight is entirely optional, but I'm not one to let a fight go unfought. Samael upgrades Beast Eye to Dragon Eye, Maragi Eye to Prominence, and Retaliate to Avenge, but beyond that isn't that scary. The only major concern is his unique move, God's Curse. While it lost the ability to inflict mind-type ailments, it now deals mid to heavy almighty damage, and still retains its chance to bind, stun, or mute. This is why we picked up Void, Nerve, and Curse. We can't let ourselves get incapacitated by ailments in this fight. And while we could pick those up with only 3 levels of investment, the real kicker was Avenge. Aside of Prominence, which we can hard stop with Gehenna, and Megidola and Megidolan, he tends to prefer his basic attack, which we can punish with Avenge for a significant amount of free damage. As such, I decided to spend 3 levels to pick this up, putting us at 218. He will use Dekaja from time to time, so we'll have to luster up every now and again, but considering we're doing nearly 1500 damage per Wind Cutter while he's at +4 defense, this won't take you too long. At which point, Hikawa disintegrates GameChamp and summons his god.
I finally killed my friends. Now I'm better than everyone else.
You look different from last I saw you.
I feel different. I feel better.
Then do you know why you're fighting now?
Yeah. It's because I know I can do this. I can do something nobody else has done. I can put myself to that grindstone and take the diamond within for myself. This is mine. I can do this.
Then take this and do it. Be the first. Be the only one who can say you did it.
With that, the Tower of Kagatsuchi is called, and we can enter the endgame. Once we enter the tower, our ending is locked. If we want the TDE, there's one last thing we have to do. In order to enter the 5th Kalpa, we have to endure a bit of a lengthy side quest, where we talk to the Zephhyr in the 2nd Kalpa, who tells us that his drinking buddy has the key. So we go talk to Loki in Ginza, who tells us that he sold it to the collector Manikin, so we have to go get it off him. This allows us to use it in the 3rd Kalpa to enter an offshoot area of the 4th Kalpa, unlock a door, head back to the 3rd Kalpa, back down to the main area of the 4th Kalpa, and finally down to the 5th Kalpa. But if you want to make this a bit more interesting, you can bug out the cutscene where the collector Manikin gives you the key. See, when you hit talk at a shop, the game checks what shop you're at so it knows what dialogue to play. In order to check if you've triggered this stage of the quest, it also runs a check to see if you've spoken to Loki about the key. The problem is that the key check happens before the check to see what shop you're in. If you're at the collector Manikin's shop, the game plays the scene correctly. But if you're at any other shop, the game has hit the check to know it needs to play some form of special dialogue, but since it doesn't have dialogue to play...
Dummy. 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 We now have the star key.
By the way, this only works on the PS2 version. It was fixed in HD. And with that, we finally arrive at our old friend, Alan Rickman. More than I think any other fight, Metatron has seen the largest upgrade. His basic attack now inflicts mute with a 100% success rate, so you're going to want Void Curse if you want to avoid that. The best way to break this fight down is phase by phase. In phase 1, he uses Silent Prayer to prevent you from buffing yourself or debuffing him, and he is extremely aggressive with it. If you buff yourself up with Luster Candy, if he doesn't remove it, it's because you dodged or nulled an attack and he was going to do it with his next action. He isn't capable of too much in this phase, though if he crits into 2 Megidolons, he can still theoretically put over 1000 damage on the board and one-turn you. The real issue comes with phase 2. In phase 2, he begins by casting Heat Riser. This is a new move to Hardtype that acts as a single target +2 to all stats. In this phase, he doesn't often go for Silent Prayer, occasionally going for the Kaja instead. And if you try to remove any of his +2s, he'll just go for Heat Riser again. In addition, he still packs Debilitate, and seeing as he has an action economy advantage over you, he's literally guaranteed to be at a better position than you at all times. For an example, say by some miracle, you're at neutral and he's at +2. This is livable for you. On his turn, he uses Debilitate to put you at -1, then Megidolons you down to 300. In this state, there is literally nothing you can do. You're low enough that he can kill you if you luster back up, and if you heal, he can very easily kill you at +2/-1. And since he seems to stop using Mahamon in this phase, once you hit phase 2, your loss is already assured. You'll be dead on the floor before you even hit phase 3. And don't even talk to me about Fire of Sinai. This fight is literally impossible by design to do solo with one press turn. So, you know what we gotta do. Just like the original game and Digital Devil Saga 1 before it, we can simply keep ourselves healed up and slowly mill his MP away. My bad, unlucky. I said we can slowly mill his... We can't mill his MP away! Metatron has gone from over 10,000 MP to 55,000. I shit you not, he has almost twice as much MP as HP, and his HP has gone up to 27,777. And remember, Metatron is extremely aggressive about dispelling our buffs. But we need to be buffed, or else the odds that he can instant kill us are simply too high. For reference, one Megidolon deals around 400 to 450 damage. 2 high rolls can put us at under 100 HP, and at that point, if we get hit by a single basic attack, we are guaranteed dead. Now, since he has 2 actions, he can only fire 2 Megidolons and a basic attack if the basic attack is a crit. But remember, 10,000 MP took us an hour and a half to mill last time. Now, he's got over 5 times that. Even with a meager 4% crit rate, the odds he will eventually crit are too high. In fact, it's all but guaranteed. If he crits, we just need to hope that he decides to go for Mahamon instead. There is literally no other option. And that, sadly, is the only way to describe the fight. Actually fighting him was impossible, as he would simply win because we can't control his buffs and debuffs with one action. To drain Metatron of his 55,000 MP would be unbelievably painful. It would take 6 hours minimum, an hour and a half with emulator speedups, and it could end at any point because Metatron decides you lose. But unlike actually fighting him, it was possible. Statistically unlikely, wholly unfeasible, and incredibly painful, but possible. So, in lieu of any other option, I picked up Void Expel to block Mahamon, Mediarahin to keep myself alive, and Mana Drain to speed up the process. And at level 223, I got to draining. And in that moment, the voice of God had fallen. We were officially en route for the true demon ending. But amid the cheers and celebrations, the voice of a certain someone rung over the crowd. Who is this mysterious someone? Well, we'll get to that later. For now, we had a tower to climb. The Tower of Kagatsuchi pits us against all 3 of the Reason leaders. Hikawa with Ahriman, Nyarly with Noah, and Deus with Baal Avatar. And while the game gives us the freedom to tackle Noah and Baal Avatar in any order, we must defeat Ahriman first.
Amuse me with your strength, evil one, before eternal silence is upon us. If you do not heed my words, then I shall send you to hell. This is but a game.
Ahriman will forbid certain forms of actions over the course of the fight, and if you ever use the forbidden action, he'll instantly kill you. In the base game, the first part of this fight is fairly trivial, as with only 6,000 HP, we can do so much damage that we actually skip phases. Now with 36,000 HP, each phase is now 3,600 health long, so we can only skip phases if we crit, and even then only during specific phases. But in order to even get there, we need to work on surviving. Because we no longer have Warcry or Taruna to debuff his attack, we need to have a game plan to increase our survivability. So I picked up Drain Attack, which thankfully has been buffed significantly. Normally, it reduces your crit rate, but makes it so that your basic attack heals you for 25% of the damage done. This has been buffed so that it no longer reduces your crit rate, and now also heals you for the damage of a basic attack.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
With Drain Attack gaming on our side, we can't possibly lose. We also swap out Void Curse and Mediarahin for Rakunda and Bright Might, since Hardtype allows all passives that buff your basic attack to stack with each other. And we move into the fight at level 228. Ahriman's game always goes in the same order, and it's important to know what skills are going to be forbidden when. He always starts on physical attacks, so buff yourself to +2 and then spam Rakunda to get him to -2. I tried this with Taunt, but buffing his basic attack is a bad idea. Even if you have the Nakaja Stones to remove it, you're still giving him time to capitalize. Use items to stay alive, and once you're done, swing with Wind Cutter for over 4,600 damage. After he takes 3,600 damage, he'll swap to spell attacks, so start spamming Drain Attack. With our buffs and debuffs, we hit and heal for around 1,300, so this won't take long. After that, he swaps to healing. This is one of 2 phases we can actually get a phase skip in. If you get a crit, swing with Wind Cutter. This will deal nearly 6,000 damage total, so if you've done any damage prior to the crit, you should be able to skip the following phase. If you don't skip it, he forbids all spells next. Again, just spam basic attacks until you get out of this one. Phases 5 and 6 are both freebies, items which we no longer need to use at this point, and summoning. Nothing we want to use is forbidden during this segment, so just tap this one in. Phase 7, he bars all spells and items. This is functionally the same as all spells, so just spam basics until he's done. Phase 8 is healing and items. If you can sneak a Wind Cutter to end this phase, do so, as the final phase is the long one. The last and final thing he forbids is all except physical attacks. And this is the longest phase of all, lasting from 7,560 HP to 720, nearly twice as long as every other phase. This is the main reason we waited so long on Drain Attack gaming. This phase is impossible without it. But by this point, you should be buffed up, and he should be debuffed enough that he shouldn't be able to prevent you from taking him down. Of course, God forbid it's that easy. Ahriman's second phase sports 55,000 HP, giving him a grand total of 91,000, meaning he wins the award for single largest HP bar in the entire game. Congratulations, Hikawa, you're an asshole. Aside from that, Ahriman 2 is identical to his standard appearance. Basic attacks, Tentacle for higher damage and a higher crit rate, Megidolan for almighty damage, but worst of all, Apocalypse. Stronger than Megidolan, more accurate, and it deals around 500 damage up front at +2 defense. Plus, while he's not guaranteed to go for it, he can absolutely go for Deikaja. Thankfully, similar to Metatron, he doesn't seem to spam this move. But if he gets a crit with his basic attack, he can absolutely go for a second one, which is all but a guaranteed loss. This run took no small shortage of attempts, as I didn't start my attempts with Bright Might. However, once I took it, things really turned around. Once I got to Ahriman's second phase using Bright Might, barring my first Drain Attack, which was a normal hit, I proceeded to get 8 crits in a row. This allowed me to follow up with a Wind Cutter after every crit for over 4,000 damage each time. Mind you, since Bright Might is now a coin flip, this meant I made 8 coin flips back to back. I rocketed through this fight, and even then, I was still in danger of losing it all. After the 8th crit, he finally landed a crit of his own with Tentacles. At this point, he could kill me with Apocalypse and any other attack. But instead, he went for something even worse. He finally cast Dekaja. And as if to rub salt in the wound, he crits again, but miraculously still chose not to finish me off, instead hitting me with a basic attack. At this point, I had to gamble. Even losing a third of my damage, I could still deal around 850 with a basic attack, and 3000 with a wind cutter. He had just under 4000 health left, so if I crit for 1200, a wind cutter would give me the win. I just needed that one last crit. It's over. It's over. It's Jover. It's Megidover. We came so close, but in the end, we couldn't stop Ahriman from critting us to death. Never mind. Situation is red. Let's go. He threw! He threw, guys! We got it! This opens up our path to the top of the Tower of Kagatsuchi. But even though I had so many people at my back, there's 2 more that I needed to beat. That's right, it's time to do the SMT thing and kill our friends. But we are not nearly ready for that yet. At the start of the 3rd section of the tower, we come to a small town run by the mannequins Deus liked so much. And this guy has the final Magatama on the list, Kailash. Unfortunately for me, I think they're upcharging me because of what I did in Mifunashiro. Unfortunately for them, and being barely below max level gives you a little bit of money. With all 24 Magatama in my possession, we go to the Cathedral of Shadow. Doors? Doors? Light? I've been waiting for you. Fuck you. Oh, that's wrong. The 12! What is going on? What is going on? I'm scared. Regardless, with all 24 Magatama in my possession, we go to the Cathedral of Shadows and Mito gives us the Lord's Sword, a unique item that allows us access to the Bandou Shrine northeast of the tower. In here contains the 4 Heavenly Kings, Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Bishaman. If I want to be able to beat Nyarly and Deus before the heat death of the universe, I need what's in that shrine. So, we return to the Bandou Shrine, ready to take on some old friends. In the base game, Jikoku and Zocho can be defeated by equipping whatever nulls their respective element and putting the game on autopilot. Now, they require like 1 step more effort. Zocho will now use Tarukaja and go for Health Thrust or his basic attack more often. Considering a critical health thrust at +1 was doing almost 800, this puts us in a bad situation, since we lacked any offense lowering abilities and had used Drain Electric for Trumpeter. But that's when I realized I still had about 58 attack mirrors left over from when I grinded them for Kinky and Asiel. Since we still have Wind Cutter, we can alternate between attacking to target Zocho's weakness, then using an attack mirror to make us repel physical. With the Adama Magatama for Electropel, this means Zocho literally cannot hurt us, and we go through his 30,000 HP in no time. Swapping over to Miasma for Null Ice, we employed the exact same strategy for Jikoku, subbing out Wind Cutter for Miragi Rocks. Considering the notable power increase from the 2nd strongest magic attack in the game to Miragi of all things, we'd be doing around 700 damage per hit, taking around 46 turns to put him down. I had more than enough Miragi Rocks, but I didn't want to blow 46 attack mirrors. But unlike Zocho, Jikoku tends to prefer ice spells over physical attacks, so I lusted up to +2 and Vakunded him down to -2. This brings our damage around 1400, which makes us able to attack mirror him down without much hassle. It was at this point I finally decided to level up again to 299, picking up Thunder Rain, a new hard-type attack that does mega AoE electric damage. It doesn't hit nearly as hard as Wind Cutter, But against an electric weak target like Komoko, it doesn't need to. Komoko still opens up by using Dragon Eye, Rakukaja, and then Makunda, but changes strategies once he hits +4 defense. Meet his first 2 turns with a Thunder Rain into a Luster Candy, then once he hits +4, hit him with a Nakaja Rock. If you have the time, use a Nakunda Rock to peel your own debuffs, then continue to Luster back up to +2 in defense. From there, even a focus boosted Deathbound won't be enough to kill you. This took me a few tries to get the necessary luck where he didn't just kill me before I could finish setting up, but once I was good to go, I could alternate between Thunder Rain and Attack Mirrors to cheese the fight without using too many. And with that, we finally level up all the way to 234. For anyone who saw the old Nocturne video, this is the fight I wanted to redeem myself on. In that video, when I said that was my first time playing Nocturne, I meant it. I did not prepare at all for the Bishaman rematch, so I was underprepared in every sense of the word. This time, I saved skills for the entire game in order to absolutely steamroll this fight. One level gets me Drain Fire as a passive, which alongside any physical resisting Magatama, mitigates all of Bishaman's kit besides Mekidolan. But astute observers who play too much Nocturne might have noticed something a while ago. I took Ice Drain for Trumpeter. Doesn't that mean I would have had to pass on Glacial Blast again? And yes, it does. I did do that. However, Hardtype added a different option, Kokaitis. 4 levels deeper as the new capstone of the Satan Magatama, it's slightly less power per hit than Glacial Blast, however each hit has a 33% freeze chance compared to Glacial Blast's 17%. This not only allows us to take advantage of Bishaman's ice weakness, but also scores free critical hits afterwards for huge damage and healing with Drain Attack. Mind you, Bishaman is still not easy. He can rock it up to +4 in physical or magical at any time, debuff you with Debilitate, swing for massive damage, all the same toys as before. But between Dakunda Rocks to remove debuffs, significantly improve turn economy, the ability to buff ourselves, and now mitigating both fire and physical, we were able to beat the boss that once took me 700 tries in only 40 deaths.
I think we got it. I think we got it. 1504. Boom! Yeah! Slide punch! Yes! Fucking 1 day! I did that in an hour!
With the pillars lowered, we unlock the Masakados Magatama. Masakados has sadly been nerfed pretty hard, now only providing innate resistance to most of the elements, though it does still null expel, death, and all ailments. However, that's not what we're here for, because it still provides repel passives for every element. Prize in hand, we return to the Tower of Kagatsuchi. Sometimes, certain fights and runs like these are difficult to talk about, because unlike stuff like Asiel, Pale Rider, or even Araman, it's not a factor of, I had the idea to take these things and that let me win. Sometimes, there is nothing you can do but know what's coming, know how to deal with it, and then executing that plan without fail. I could not do the Moire Sisters without several null passives. I could not do Trumpeter without Endure. And without the full breadth of Masakados, I would not be able to handle Baal Avatar.
Robin, for denying the Manakins their ending, for killing Giga Chad Futomimi, I will destroy you!
In the original game, Baal Avatar was an absolute joke. Unlike nearly every boss past the mid-game for the last 60 hours, they only have one press turn, and their actions consist of 3 Expel attacks and Mekidola. The only unique thing they have is Baal's Bane, a special attack which turns you into a fly. Being a fly sets all of your stats to 1 and overwrites your natural affinities so that you take double base damage from everything, and also doubles your chances of dying to instant kills. However, since Baal's Bane is Curse Element and Demifiend can rock Masakados, or Gase if you don't have it, this is not normally an issue in Demonless runs. Combine this with a fairly middling agility stat, and Baal Avatar can barely hit you, let alone hurt you. Hardtype, meanwhile, made Baal Avatar an actual functional boss. Holy Wrath is swapped for Panzer Ray, a new mega damage AoE force attack. Beast Eye has been upgraded to Dragon Eye, and to top it all off, Baal Avatar now has Heat Riser. But more than anything else, Baal's Bane has been upgraded to Almighty Elements. This means on the first turn, you will be turned into a fly, meaning you must play the entire fight out, taking double damage from all sources, while also having a doubled chance to die to Mahamon. Combine that with Heat Riser, and Baal Avatar is now the most threatening of all 3 Reason fights. Now, she's guaranteed to hit you, and she's going to be doing quadruple damage with all of her attacks. Much as I would have liked to take Dekaja, this doesn't even solve all of our problems. Because while Force Drain and Void Expel might have solved Baal Avatar, save for Megiddola, we haven't even gotten to the true gimmick of the boss. After taking enough damage, Baal Avatar will summon Giga Chad Osei and Giga Chad Floros, who round out the rest of Baal's kit. Floros will always immediately heal Baal Avatar to their full 36,000 HP, has every buff skill, Dekaja, as well as Maragidyne and Mazandine. Meanwhile, Osei packs Maziodyne and Mabufudyne, along with Rakunda, Dekunda, and Tetrakarn and Makarakarn. Both of them are also packing extremely hard-hitting physical skills, and as if all of that wasn't enough, once Baal Avatar's HP is low enough after the backup is summoned, they can start using Antictathon, a new single-target skill that deals heavy almighty damage and debilitates on hit. I'm gonna be real here, Baal Avatar is now the final boss of the Reason fights. Once they start using Dragon Eye after Osei and Floros come out, they won't stop using it even after they are dead. Meaning even if we were to take down Osei and Floros, Dragon Eye into Heat Riser, Megiddola is a guaranteed kill. And even if they don't use Dragon Eye, one Antictathon can leave us in an impossible state. This fight requires us to manage Physical, Fire, Ice, Electric, Force Expel, and Almighty, along with having to keep ourselves healed and buffed, while also preventing Baal Avatar from buffing too much. For a lone Demi-Fiend with one press turn, it is impossible to win this in a fair fight. Fortunately, Masakados means we don't have to fight fair. We go up 6 levels to 241, skipping Megiddolan and picking up passives to repel Fire, Ice, Electric, and Physical. We pass on Force Repel, and that's because I'm going to beat Deus using his own strategy. For anyone unaware, in Deus' own No Demons run of Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, he beat Lucifer by stalling him out of his MP, and we're going to do the same. Force Repel would mean Deus would slowly lower his own HP with reflected Pantares. Force Drain means we decide once Phase 2 begins, and I decide that it happens once he's out of MP. Of course, Megiddola can still hit us fairly hard, capable of around 800 damage at +4, and we didn't have the HP restores to make this work. However, 5 more levels allowed us to pivot into Dia Rahin. With this, we can heal every time we get hit without having to worry about dying. And unlike Metatron, Baal Avatar just no longer uses their basic attack in Hardtype. This allowed us to mill out their 50,000 HP in complete safety, before forcing Deus to enter Mosquito Simulator 2024. Once Osei and Floros come out, they're completely walled as well, allowing us to take them out without any effort. Thus, once we get to Phase 3, Antictathon is off the table, and after around 400 fly bites, we beat Deus at his own game.
You've come a long way. Gotta give you credit, but you seek to complete Nocturne. For a truly peaceful world, Nocturne must never exist. Sorry, Robin. This is goodbye.
Noah was a fight I expected to be fairly easy. See, his main gimmick is Aurora, which allows him to change his affinities to repel everything except one element, going in the order Ice, Fire, Force, Electric. But since I had saved the upgraded Magma Axis Pierce combo for this exact fight, I didn't see any issue. But I have forgotten one very crucial detail about the fight. Until you deal enough damage, Noah will exclusively spam his basic attack, which is Physical Almighty and guaranteed to hit. With +1 to our defense, this does just under half of our HP, but since he gets 2 press turns, this forces us into an infinite loop of healing with items until we run out and just die. If we were at +2, we would deal enough damage that Drain Attack Gaming could fully heal us. But if we luster up to +2, we'd still be at low HP, and if we heal, we just get looped again. Thankfully, the Strem chat helped me make a plan. On the first turn, we luster up to +1. Then on the second turn, we throw out a Drain Attack. If we don't get a crit, we reset, and this does take us roughly 20 attempts, but eventually, we get our critical hit. This heals us for over 1000 HP, while also allowing us to luster up to +2. Now the tables are turned, and we progressively hit Noah for enough damage to heal ourselves the full every single turn. Once he starts casting Aurora, the fight gets significantly easier, as he will prioritize his elemental attacks. So since we take no damage most turns, we can just spam Magma Axis into him over and over for roughly 2500 to 3000 damage each turn. We do have to heal every now and again, but burning through Phase 1's 35,000 HP is not hard at all. Phase 2 sees things get immediately harder, as Noah breaks out Domination, which I did not consent to, and can basically be described as Death Touch on steroids. Even at +2 defense, this deals roughly 800 damage on average, while also draining a quarter of my MP. This is where our damage being so fucking high comes in handy. Once Noah decides not to use Domination and swing into us with an elemental, we can stop using healing items and swing into him with Magma Axis. If he goes for Domination, he'll heal some of this off, but you should be putting more damage on the board than he's healing off. It's also a fantastic thing that Magma Axis was changed to use MP instead of HP, because otherwise this fight would have been a lot scarier. Of course, if you want to talk scary... We in the business call that a problem. If this happens, your top priority should be reapplying buffs. Domination at +1 does about 875 damage on average, and the highest roll I ever saw from him was in the 950 range. So a Domination at +1 shouldn't kill you, but the sooner you can get back to +2, the better. This fight can be extremely swingy, since you also have to deal with Noah healing off your damage, but with enough beads and enough luck, you can show Noah what true domination looks like. With Ahriman silenced, Noah isolated, and Baal Avatar overpowered, the path to Kagatsuchi opens. And there is nothing left for us to do but choose our final skills and Magatama. With Repel or Drain to every element we care about, we only have 3 skill slots to work with, of which I opted for Drain Attack Gaming, Newcomer Magma Axis, but for our buffing skill, Lustering Up wouldn't cut it anymore. We needed something stronger.
Oh, you must be truly desperate to come to me for help.
Heat Riser, 5 levels deep into Kailash, allows us to instantly buff to +2 to all stats, pushing us to level 252. We made it. Once you're ready, equip the Iomante Magatama. I'm serious, don't want Masakatos here. Level up 3 more times, make a backup safety save, and ride the elevator to your destiny.
We both know this is not the first time you have stood here. In November of 2020, you were blind to the world around you. You walked a path unknown, but still saw fit to take further challenge upon yourself. But your lust for challenge could not be sated. You saw a challenge none would dare undertake, to walk a road few have dared to walk with demons, much less without. And when you saw the only ones who had dared did so with 2 actions, you undertook my mod upon yourself.
Wait, what?
I am Zombero, and if you want to complete Nocturne Hardtype without using demons, this is your final challenge.
Remember that certain someone during the Metatron fight? That was Zombero, the mod creator himself, returning to the SMT sphere to congratulate me on taking it this far. And he was here to watch me tackle the final fights. But in spite of everything we faced, we still had one final trial left. Kagatsuchi's changes are the pinnacle of simple but effective. Most of his kit is the same, but a higher power level along with the changes to magic made Kagatsuchi 1 an absolute nightmare. And I do mean Kagatsuchi 1, his second phase isn't that bad, but we'll get there. Firstly, Kagatsuchi 1's HP has doubled to 40,000, matching the HP of the second phase. His kit at the start of the fight isn't all that scary. His basic attack is Physical Almighty, he has heavy all-target skills for the 4 elements, and in Hardtype, he swaps Megidola for Megidolan. However, the hard part of this fight comes with the moon. See, when fighting Kagatsuchi 1, each time it's your turn, the moon phase advances 2 phases, starting at the new moon. At new moon, your damage is doubled and Kagatsuchi's is halved. At a crescent moon, you're at 150% and he's at 75%. At half moon, you're both dealing standard damage. At a gibbous, you're dealing 75% and he'll be doing 150%. And at a full moon, you'll be dealing half damage, and he'll be dealing double damage. Moreover, at full moon, Kagatsuchi will always spend his entire turn casting Vast Light, an almighty attack which is guaranteed to hit and deals roughly 850 damage at +2 defense. Which means if we're not at +2, Vast Light is guaranteed lethal. Even at +1, it deals around 1050 on average. We cannot take a Vast Light hit unless we are fully buffed. Now you might think, okay, that's fine, we buffed to +2 and coast, right? Well, here's what I mean by simple but effective. In Hardtype, Vast Light is also a Dakaja. Every time you get hit by Vast Light, your buffs go back to 0. And as if that wasn't bad enough, 2 basic attacks under 6/8 moon is lethal unless you're at +2 defense. Every single time Vast Light is used, you roll the dice that Kagatsuchi doesn't go for 2 basic attacks. If he does, you lose, go to the title screen, do not pass go, do not collect 200 Maka. Even assuming he doesn't go for 2 basic attacks, we need to be at +2 again before the next full moon, or it's all for naught. And stringing together 2 turns where we can muster up just wasn't consistent enough. This is the exclusive reason we brought Heat Riser. Heat Riser reduces the amount of turns we need to buff up from 2 to 1. This increases our survivability significantly, and also allows us to get a lot more damage on the board. Unfortunately, having to gamble our death every 8 turns is only the first of our concerns. Once you get him to around 70% HP remaining, in the base game he'd start casting Phase Shift. This would move the moon phase forward 2 phases, potentially putting him in a better situation, or at the very least meaning he would use Vast Light again sooner. In Hardtype, this move is changed to Omnipotence. What does Omnipotence do?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Omnipotence is a flat +6 to all stats. Yes, I said +6. Even if we could somehow put him at minimum stats, this sets him to maximum. And he loves this move. He'll sometimes use it even if he's already at max stats. This is probably because his AI thinks it's using Phase Shift, so he's trying to move the moon phase forward when in actuality, he's just supercharging himself. This adds a second stipulation to Vast Light. Now, not only do we need to make sure that we are fully buffed, but we also need to make sure that he does not have his buffs up. If either of those 2 conditions aren't met, thankfully there is one saving grace here. Because Kagatsuchi thinks this is Phase Shift, he will not use Omnipotence on 6/8 waxing, as that would make the moon full, which could result in him missing his chance to use Vast Light. Thus, 6/8 waxing is our safe turn. If it's safe to use a Akasha Stone on that turn, do so. This fight is going to take a lot of trial and error, because the odds of us dying are higher than any other fight. To compare it to Metatron, the odds Metatron would kill us started low and got higher the more times he rolled the dice. Kagatsuchi is the same, but his odds start at like 60%. This is also the reason we won't be stalling him out of his 40,000 MP today, even if I wanted to. As if that wasn't already bad enough, once you get him to around 12,000 HP, he begins casting Antictathon. Antictathon puts us in an unbelievably bad situation, as it means we need to heal and rebuff in order to make the Vast Light check. Ideally, you want to spend as little time in this fight as possible, as the more opportunities you give him to cast Antictathon, the greater the odds he puts you in an unwinnable situation. Omnipotence into Antictathon on 4/8 waxing is guaranteed lethal unless you crit a drain attack. This fight was insane, and it was so variable there wasn't a single problem I could tweak my build to solve. Sometimes I would just die to Vast Light, sometimes to a double basic, sometimes I'd get really far and lose to Antictathon. This fight was just too unpredictable. The RNG kept dealing me unwinnable hands. But if RNG can deal me an unwinnable hand, maybe it can deal me a winning hand too. It's happening, guys! Phase 2 is a go! I could not go back to Kagatsuchi 1. I had to win this now. There was no turning back. Kagatsuchi 2 drops the moon phase mechanic entirely, so this is a straight fight at 100% damage. And even though Hardtype doesn't change this fight much, even his HP is actually the same, it does give him one thing. Infinite Light now acts as a silent prayer, while also healing him for over 1,000 HP. And if you thought he liked using Omnipotence, ooh boy! This is the same story as before. If you get hit by this attack and aren't buffed up, you will die. However, he no longer has Omnipotence, and Infinite Light takes a turn to charge up. So whenever he uses it, heal up with an item to give yourself the greatest odds of not dying, and then Heat Riser at the first opportunity. That being said, there's very little we can do if Kagatsuchi decides to use this move over and over. This fight is entirely out of your control, at first glance. With a healthy supply of beads and bead chains, Kagatsuchi would have to sit on Infinite Light for an impossibly long amount of time to truly mill us out. Eventually, his AI will get bored and do something else, and that's when we go for damage. At roughly 3,000 damage per magma axis, he needs to use Infinite Light 3 times over the course of 6 turns to completely invalidate one hit. 6 turns to our 1 put the odds in our favor. He can sit on Infinite Light all he wants, and mind you, sometimes he will. I watched him go from 4,000 HP to over 16,000 once, but so long as you stick to the loop, the fight is entirely in your hands. Goodbye!
God is dead. God remains dead. And you have killed him. How shall you comfort yourself, the murderer of all murderers?
What was holiest and mightiest of all, that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under your knife? Who will wipe this blood of you? What water is there to clean yourself?
None. Lucifer has undergone the most changes of any fight in the entire game. Hardtype drops all of his normal attack moves, Prominence, Mabufudine, Megidolan, etc., and instead gives him a suite of moves entirely unique to him, along with upgrading the other unique parts of his kit. In Phase 1, you'll see his basic attack and Evil Gleam as normal. His basic attack no longer does damage, but instead drains 166 MP from the target, and also always counts as a critical hit, so it only costs him 1/2 press turn. In addition, Evil Gleam now deals damage and inflicts panic instead of charm. As for new moves, he packs Phlegathon, a severe AoE fire attack that applies Tarunda on hit, and Judacia 2, a severe AoE ice attack that also has a chance to proc stone. In Phase 2, he begins using High King, which now inflicts Mute instead of Bind, and also adds in Weeping Heaven for severe AoE electric and a stun chance, and Cardinal Winds for severe AoE force with a charm chance. Once you reach his final phase, he also adds Hades Blast into the mix, which is honestly his weakest move, but hey, high power AoE physical never hurt anybody, especially not on a 38% crit rate. But this is where we get to Root of Evil, which has been completely reworked. Rather than being a D10 on the Wild Magic table, it is now a -4 to all stats. This puts you on the back foot immediately, and I highly recommend as many Dekuna Rocks as you can carry. If he combos it with any attack, heal up first, but get your buff situation under control as soon as you can. Needless to say, this form of Lucifer gives us so many bases we need to cover, lest we get completely manhandled. Physical, fire, ice, electric, force, panic, and mute, which would certainly be a problem if Deus and Nyarly hadn't made sure we were completely ready for it. In order to defeat Baal Avatar and Noah, repel or drain to every single element was required. And in order to defeat Lucifer, and let's be honest, Kagatsuchi as well, we needed repel and drain to every element. While I honestly thought force drain over repel was a concession I had to make to stall Baal Avatar, it turned out to be really helpful here. Cardinal Winds is a huge amount of healing for us that also helps mitigate his offensive attacks. And plus, Fire Repel even lets us debuff Lucifer by repelling his Phlegathon back at him. Speaking of repels, you might be wondering why I suggested Iomante for this fight. Wouldn't Masakados be better to prevent Mute from High King? Well, remember what I said for Asiel? Also, fun fact, the way repels work in Nocturne, the enemy takes the damage you would have taken. So it's actually better for us to not resist physical for these fights, as it doubles the value of every attack mirror. The same applies here. By not resisting all elements, the power of all of our repels and drains doubles. And we don't really care about Mute either, since Lucifer's basic will drain our MP to 0 within like the first 2 seconds of the fight anyway. So Iomante and our repels cover everything we care about. This doesn't mean the fight is free though. Lucifer will fight you every step of the way, but you have all the tools to fight him back. Since we have no MP, swap back to Luster Candy strats. If you pick up the Chakra Elixir at the bottom of the obelisk once the tower is available, the Luster glitch is now infinite use as long as you're not at full MP, which Lucifer will take care of himself. You are constantly at risk at losing it all, and Lucifer can definitely heal himself, but slowly, he will bring himself lower and lower. 40,000, 30,000, 20, 15, 10, and eventually, we bring him to 118 HP, and the impossible becomes real.
So many times. So much. So much. Think about everything. Think about resetting the game to the craters at the start of the fucking terminal. Think about resetting for that Miragi Rock. Think about Dante shooting us 18 quadrillion fucking times with Ebony and Ivory for -1 defense and evasion. Think about Thor blasting us with Mjolnir. Think about how we milled out Metatron, Oze, and just like so many other fucking guys. Think about how we leveled to 211 for Trumpeter. Think about how we made Bishaman look like a fucking joke. Think about how we sat there and grinded out Baal Avatar until it fucking worked. Think about the unabashed luck that it took to allow Kagatsuchi to not Etekaitan us to death. And think about the sound of one last slide punch. Because you can't just beat, but you can complete Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne Hardtype. Solo, hard, true demon ending, one press turn, no new game plus, ground up, without using any demons! I started streaming the original Nocturne Demonless run on December 11th, 2019. I had to learn so much about that game in order to beat it that I was able to make videos talking about its formulas. Videos that are still referenced online today. It is bizarre to me to see gaming websites talking about information that wasn't easily accessible until I sought it out. It's weird to say, but more than I think any other game, this game has changed my life. It gave me a presence, a platform. It gave my close friend a platform. And in some ways, I helped it as much as it helped me. The Hardtype hack has always had this unapproachable air about it, almost an air of mystique, likely due to it being a PS2 hack for a game that didn't have any others. I've spoken a lot about untreaded ground, but I mean, shit, these games are all about human potential. What a human can do if they're willing to put themselves to the grindstone and find out if it can be done. The only time we can't do something isn't just when we accept that we can't, but when we refuse to find a way to do so. And today, I showed that the Hardtype hack, something that stood on a pedestal for so many, could be conquered just the same as anything that came before it. So thank you, Zombero, for giving us a fantastically made hack for a fantastic game. Thank you, Deus, Nyarly, and GameChamp, for inspiring and motivating me to push myself and make each video better. Thank you to Zephhyr for being a great co-host and great friend, and thank you to Zephhyr for fact-checking me on Nocturne's information. Thank you to everyone who tuned into my live streams even once, especially the 62 people who were there to see me take down Lucifer. Thank you so much to all of you for watching, liking, subscribing, and bringing us this far. But more than that, thank you, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne.
Are you satisfied?
Yes.
Good. Then walk proud, onward, towards your next challenge.
Nocturne died. And I was given life. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this video was a bit sillier than usual, so let me know if you prefer this style or the style of some of my earlier stuff. Also, thanks again to Deus, GameChamp, and Nyarly for letting me write them a bit on the goofy side, and for delivering some amazing performances. And of course, thank you to Zephhyr, Train, King Titanite, Sonata, Seal, and Drake for filling the rest of the roles. And to Thanos Pagkidis, Lynn CPK, and FemC for the visual help. And of course, super special shoutouts have to go to Mason White Gaming for the Metatron mix. And speaking of shoutouts, special thanks go to YouTube members Dawn Shimmer, Ryoko Strifer, Part-Time Prick, Axel Ryman, Fabrizio Pignataro, Upland2, Not D Wadler, Jaffinator2166, Pika the Wumpus, Scott Rouch, Hunter Regal, Ray the Shame, Shadowcoin, Platinum, Agwith Dragonflame, and Tagless. And to Patreon members Cuddlefish, Gracemy, Kirara, Sokekyon, Trucker96, Axel Rosenberg, Dylan Toomey, Hound, and T. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Fantasy is more than just a dream. You can make it a reality.